Under the dazzling lights of Barcelona, Catalina Nieves, a celebrated television chef, basks in her rising fame. But behind the scenes, her marriage to Henry Reed, a steadfast CFO, is unraveling. Whispers of late-night rendezvous with a charming soccer star cast shadows over her glamorous image. Hank, still reeling from public humiliation in her previous shows, fights to hold on to his dignity as Catalina's ambitions threaten to eclipse their 26-year marriage. Meanwhile, miles away in Asheville, Hank finds solace in a quiet life, forming unexpected bonds with Julia LeBlanc, a single mother, and her two young daughters. As Catalina's flirtations grow bolder, tension ignites, leaving Hank to question whether love, trust, or betrayal will ultimately define his future. Bella, feeling excited, couldn't wait any longer as she watched the man step out of the delivery truck. She quickly ran from her aunt's office to the loading dock and jumped into his arms, making him take a small step back. "Mr. Hank, you're back!" she exclaimed. He chuckled. "Hey there, sweet girl, I'm here for a few weeks." Noticing the tray of drinks in his hand, she asked with hope, "Are those for us?" He smiled back and said, "Yes, they are. Your Aunt Morgan told me what to get for everyone." Bella lit up. She loved the afternoon snacks that Hank would bring for her, her Aunt Morgan, and her older sister Amber. He had been away for a few weeks, working on another job that took him away from home sometimes. He was wearing his food bank uniform, similar to what he had on the last time she saw him. Cargo shorts, a polo shirt, and a baseball cap with the food bank logo, just like the other workers there. Her aunt managed the food bank, and Bella and her sister often spent their summers there. Recently, they started going to summer day camps, which they really enjoyed. After camp, they would go to their aunt's place until it was time to go home. The girls lived with their mother, aunt, and Uncle Bill. Morgan and Bella took the drinks and thanked Hank. He handed a frappuccino to Amber, who muttered a brief, "Thank you." Morgan frowned at Amber's response, but didn't say anything. Instead, she said, "Thanks for the drinks, Hank. You didn't have to do this." "I'm happy to help," he replied. He turned back to Bella and asked, "Your aunt tells me you've been going to summer camps while I was away. What have you been up to?" Bella, the lively 80-year-old, eagerly shared everything she and her sister had experienced over the past 3 weeks. They had received scholarships to attend different camps, which covered all their expenses. One camp focused on technology, and both girls got new devices they could keep. Bella shared her stories with him for a whole half hour, excitedly recounting all the fun they had. Hank then asked Amber, "How are you liking your new laptop?" This time Amber smiled because she was thrilled with it. "I am. It's helping me learn how to type." "I'm sure you're doing great," he encouraged. Morgan smiled at Hank. She wanted to know if he had given the girls the camp scholarships or the tech devices, but he stayed quiet about it. She and the girl's mother were surprised by both news, but were happy that this nice man, who had volunteered occasionally for years, was interested in the girls. Bella asked, "Where are you going?" "To Australia and Singapore. Do you know where those places are?" She replied, "I know about Australia, but not. What was the other one?" "Singapore. Let me show you." He took her iPad and pulled up Google Maps. He zoomed out to show her where it was compared to Asheville in Australia. Then he opened an app called Stack the Countries to help her learn geography. Hank told her about his work trip to each place and what he did there. After that, he went back to the loading dock to unload the truck and help restock some shelves at the food bank. He was still working when Morgan and the girls said goodbye for the day. What sweet girls, he thought. They reminded him of his kids when they were younger. He was glad he could bring them some happiness during the summer. Leaving Pittsburgh for a bit was a good choice. The next day, Tuesday, he came back with more food donations and drinks for the girls. Bella asked Hank, "Do you work at night too?" He laughed. "Not at the office. I work at the tire factory near Hendersonville in the mornings. I'm helping here in the afternoons this summer, and I usually work a few hours in the evening at home. Unless I need a break. I think I'll try to go fishing one evening this week." "Can I come too?" "I don't think your mom will let you come by yourself. Maybe if your Uncle Bill comes with you, she'll say yes." He looked at Morgan. She laughed. Are you kidding? My husband is retired and loves fishing. Just give him the date and time and he'll be there. Great. Let's plan for Thursday afternoon. He can bring his pole if he wants, but I'm bringing plenty of gear and drinks. With an offer like that, you can count on him. Bella was thrilled because she had only been fishing once before and barely remembered it. Even Amber struggled to hide her excitement. On Thursday afternoon, Bill arrived at the food bank to switch cars with Morgan so he could take the girls to the lake to fish. Hank had his SUV packed with gear, drinks, and snacks. Bill brought a couple of fishing rods, while Hank had a half dozen. Their plan was to use some chicken livers to catch catfish and some live minnows for crappie nearby. The afternoon started slowly, but when they switched from minnows to grubs and then to spinners, the fishing picked up. Hank and Bill were fishing with the girls, and they were having a great time. When the fish started biting, everyone got excited. The bites would come all at once, making the experience even better. After they caught their fifth fish, one of the lines dipped under the water. Bella was still busy bringing in her fish, and Hank noticed that Bill was moving slowly because of an injury. So he rushed over to the rod that was tugging and took hold of it. He handed it to Amber and encouraged her to reel in the catfish, helping her out along the way. It was quite a struggle, but Amber enjoyed it. After about 10 minutes, she finally got it into the net. It was a nice 4-pound catfish. Bill and Hank praised her for her hard work, and she felt happy being around Hank. Later, Hank ordered a feast from Bojangles, including chicken, biscuits, and sides, and they enjoyed their meal sitting under a large oak tree. It turned out to be a wonderful evening. Morgan came by afterward and took the girls home so they could get ready for bed, as they had summer camp the next morning. The men cleaned the fish and put them in a cooler for Bill to take home, promising a fish fry soon. Bill had a great time, too, and was glad the girls enjoyed themselves. After the girls left, while cleaning the fish, Bill asked Hank, "The only thing Morgan has told me about you is that you volunteer a lot and work at the tire factory nearby. But based on your new Honda Pilot, your connection to the summer camps, and how you didn't hesitate to order food here, I think there's more to you than just being a factory worker." Hank laughed and replied, "Honestly, Bill, there isn't much to me. I'm from Pittsburgh, where the factory's headquarters are located. I travel a bit for work, and I have a project that lets me be here this summer. My family loves Asheville, and we have a vacation home here, so it's easier for me to work from this spot. I'm looking into ways to work here more often." "So you are more than just a factory worker?" Bill asked, intrigued. "I am. I handle the company's finances. What about you? What did you do before you retired?" Hank inquired. "I was a postal worker driving a delivery truck. I was in an accident several years ago, which ended my job suddenly. I can't move as well as I used to, but I'm getting better each year. I have a 2-acre garden that keeps me busy during the summer. The girls and their mom help me a bit on some mornings, but it's mostly my summer hobby." Bill thought for a moment and added, "So based on what you said earlier, does that mean you're the CFO?" Hank nodded in agreement. "That and a few other overhyped letters," said Hank. Bill asked, "I see a ring on your finger. Is your wife still in Pittsburgh? Is she coming down?" "She's traveling for work as well. When she's away, I use my project as a reason to work from here because I enjoy it. She's been traveling more often, and I've told her that I'm not happy about it," Hank said with a shrug. "I'm not sure what will happen next." Bill nodded in understanding. "Any kids?" "2. A son in college and a daughter who graduated with a marketing degree about a year ago. How about you?" "2 as well, but they are in their 30s and live in Charlotte with their families. I have 3 grandkids so far, 5 if you count Amber and Bella, and I like including them." Hank nodded, feeling he understood Bill's feelings. Bill continued, "Thanks for today. I don't expect you to do this all the time, but if you feel like it again, let me know and we'll come back." It was clear the girls enjoyed it too. Hank replied, "You can count on it." When Hank got home, he put his things away and took a shower. As he climbed into bed, he checked his phone. For the 10th night in a row, there were no messages or texts from Catalina or Kat, his wife. At 7 a.m. the next morning, Friday, Hank pulled into the parking lot of the factory. He would use a small conference room for the morning, as he often did when he visited, since there were no extra offices available. With one of the top managers present, everyone acted politely. However, As time passed, the workers became more relaxed. Hank felt he had good relationships with several people at the plant, regardless of their roles. Just before getting out of his car, his phone started beeping. He answered a Skype call. "Hey, Scott, what's going on? How's Barcelona?" Scott and his wife, Tina, were part of Kat's team. Scott handled the camera and audio while Tina was the director. They were a big part of his wife's crew. What began with just Catalina, their kids, and himself helping her start a side project away from her job at Heinz had slowly turned into a successful career. She became a mix of Martha Stewart and Bob Vila. She could cook wonderfully and had great ideas for home renovations, eventually creating a popular PBS show that reached from New York's Finger Lakes down to Richmond and as far west as Indianapolis, even gaining some fans in North Carolina and Tennessee. Their big break came one night at a Pittsburgh Penguins tailgate party. She, Hank, and a neighbor hosted a fancy tailgate event at a game, giving out food samples and selling a cookbook filled with her recipes. She looked great, just like many people at Penguins games, not like the Flyers or Bruins fans. A cameraman and reporter noticed her, and she quickly appeared on local TV. Being attractive in Spanish helped too. She had a voice like Penelope Cruz and resembled Salma Hayek with a lively personality similar to Sofia Vergara. She embraced her Spanish roots and used her maiden name, Nieves, on TV. Because of her stunning appearance, many called her the Spanish Nigella Lawson. When she and her husband Hank decided she needed a separate kitchen studio for filming, they filmed everything from planning with the architects to working with suppliers. That's when they brought in Scott and Tina, a couple in their late 20s, to help with production planning and filming. Hank and the kids tried to handle things until then. They built a small studio on their 2-acre property north of Pittsburgh. Hank and Catalina worked on the landscaping and interior to create a filming space similar to Ina Garten's barn on Long Island. What started as a mix of YouTube and PBS soon became a local PBS show, and later it was broadcast in over 20 cities. Catalina caught the attention of several networks, though she hadn't signed any contracts yet. She had many sponsors and had just released her 5th cookbook, which made the New York Times bestseller list. Her popularity was growing fast. However, this success came at a cost, affecting her marriage with Hank. Her focus became her public persona and celebrity status. She changed from casual cooking clothes to stylish outfits for events like the Pittsburgh Symphony and the opera. Each of her social media accounts had over 1 million followers, and Hank had always been there to support her. To expand her reach, she hired a new agent from New York named Sheila, who brought in a producer and editor named Felicia. They convinced Catalina that she was ready for bigger opportunities that could provide her with a much larger income. Recently, her Instagram and Twitter posts shifted away from recipes and cooking tips to focus more on her personal life. 4 years ago, she showed up in about 20% of her online photos, mostly featuring meals she made or a kitchen she had worked on. Now she appeared in almost 80% of them. Hank thought this change was because of the new people she hired. When Hank told Catalina that he wouldn't be joining her for the 4-week shoot in Spain, her second time there, she was shocked. After she told Scott and Tina, they were worried. By then, Hank was in Asia, so they mostly sent him texts about the surprise. This was going to be the first week of filming in Spain, and Hank was curious about how this would go. Scott asked, "Are your bags ready? Tina and I are sending you a first-class ticket to Barcelona. She's on the call, too, by the way." "Hey, Tina." "Hey, Scott. The Queen has not been happy this week. She's been in a bad mood this morning. It's been really tough. You weren't here to double-check things before she arrived on site. Some tasks are running behind. Without you here to help, I keep telling Scott we should give up. We can't afford to quit, but you owe us dinner and drinks when you come back." "Sure, but don't bother with the ticket. I'm not going, and she already knows. I'm done with this new version of Catalina. If I can't have my regular cat back, who enjoyed the simple things, I don't want this change. She can stay in Spain for all I care." Scott said, "Oh, Morellis has been around. She's not happy with her daughter or her friends. I think she liked the old cat, too." Hank asked, "Are you guys taking a lunch break?" "Not with her around. The workers have a lot to finish, so she's gone to her mother's place. Tina and I will stay here to film their work, and Tina will plan some early shots for next week. We hope to be cooking by the end of next week. Otherwise, we will be behind." The crew is great, but they clearly haven't watched enough shows where they try to finish a remodel in a week. We gave them 2 weeks, but they are still having a hard time. Hank laughed. Sounds like I made a good choice to stay back. Tina asked, Hank, do you really mean you want her to stay in Spain? We've known both of you for a long time. This past year has been really hard. Are you both going to be okay? I don't know. I'm getting ready for the idea that we probably won't be. I'm not sure if she has told you, but we are officially separated. I haven't told Eva or Eric. If she mentioned it to them, they haven't said anything to me, so I'm guessing she hasn't. You two are the only ones I have shared this with. I'm working from Asheville while she's away, but you don't have to say anything about that. Separated? Wow, Scott said. But I totally understand. I can imagine that living with her has been tough this past year. Tina told me that if I did to her what Kat let happen to you, she would be very upset with me. Yeah, that wasn't the beginning, but it shone a light on our marriage, making every problem seem bigger. I've tried to talk with her, but she thinks I'm being unreasonable. I believe that now that the kids are out of the house, we both want different things. I don't know if we will ever agree again. Even though there is no legal separation in Pennsylvania, I have told her that we are separated. If I spend any time in that house, it will be in the guest bedroom. I'm completely out. There was a quiet pause on the phone as everyone took this in. Tina said, I'm sorry, Scott. I feel like we created a problem. No. You two are the best friends anyone could have. Kat is the one who thinks she can enjoy life with others while we just take what's left. Sorry, but that's not happening. I hope when you get back you will think about starting a family. You've mentioned it before, so I hope that time is coming soon. Scott replied, We've been thinking about it. We have both quietly talked to a few people in Pittsburgh about jobs. We don't want to leave Kat, but this week makes me wonder if she will move to New York and leave us behind. She might even move to Barcelona. We've had to hire someone to keep fans away from the site. I'm not surprised. Well, good for her. If that's the life she wants, she can go for it. She may find that things aren't always easy, and if she struggles, none of us will be there to help. I'm sorry, Hank. You've been a good husband and a great friend. Let us know if we can help you with anything. Thank you. I really appreciate your call, Hank said. Anytime. As Hank walked into the building, he remembered why he was working from Asheville. He was grateful for the food bank and those 2 girls who kept him distracted from his real life. He dreaded living in Pittsburgh if Kat was there. Even if she became famous and moved to New York, being known as the former Mr. Catalina Nieves might not be easy either. He could almost hear the guys saying, You walked away from that? Yep, any man would have to think twice. That afternoon, before the girls got to the food bank, he decided to call Kat. It was 8 p.m. in Barcelona, so not too late. It would be the first time he tried to reach her in several weeks. She called him while he was in Singapore, trying to change his mind about meeting her in Barcelona. He didn't change his mind, and that made her very angry. She even called him an insolent child. He wondered what she would say today. Her phone rang and rang, but she didn't answer. He left her a voicemail that said, I just wanted to see how you're doing. Call me back when you have a minute. He wondered if she was visiting her mother in Barcelona. He had always liked Morales Nieves. She was kind, with a bit of a fiery side, and had treated him well. He checked his Find My Friends app to see if she was at her mother's nice apartment, but she wasn't. Instead, she was in the shopping area of downtown Barcelona. Oh well. The girls enjoyed their drinks and thanked him again for taking them fishing. Morgan thought that one more trip would give them enough for a big fish dinner. He was looking forward to it. The next morning, he received a text from Kat saying, Sorry I missed you. Sheila and I were shopping for things we need for the show. He had a feeling she wasn't really sorry. He sighed, realizing he had made her choose, and it looked like she had made her decision. Early the following week, while working at the food bank and thinking about his evening plans, he decided it was time to meet the girl's mother. He asked, How would you all like to have dinner at your mother's restaurant tonight? My treat. The girls were surprised since they had been there many times but only had dessert before. Morgan said, Hank, are you sure? I know you can afford it, but it's a fancy place. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I appreciate your concern, but don't worry about that. Plus, I want to show Amber and Bella's mom that I'm not a bad person. When he mentioned their mom, Both Amber and Bella looked up from their devices. Morgan chuckled. "Oh, don't stress about that. I don't think she knows everything yet, but she knows who you are. You'd be surprised by what people can find online. Mr. Henry Reed, CFO and all that from Pittsburgh." Hank nodded. "I hope you don't think I was trying to hide anything." "Not at all. I appreciate your help and the donations from your company over the years. My family is thankful for what you've done for the girls. For now, your story can wait. I hope one day you'll share it. I appreciate that, and I will. I'll have more to share in a few weeks." Bella asked, "What do all those letters mean?" Morgan replied, "It means he's important." Hank laughed lightly. "No, it just means I studied for a long time and passed a lot of tests. Morgan, don't make it sound like more than it is. What I do is just for my family. It's not who I am." "Well, the work you do here is really valued by many families. I hope you keep it up." "Thanks. My company enjoys helping this organization, and I do too." That evening, Hank stood outside Malta, one of Asheville's newer and nicer restaurants. He had checked it out a few times since meeting the girls and was looking forward to a nice dinner. The restaurant was in an old downtown Asheville building. Instead of using rustic decor, it had high ceilings, bright colors, and plenty of white and blue tiles on the walls. As the name suggests, the restaurant serves Mediterranean food. Being in the middle of the Mediterranean, it offered dishes from all the countries that bordered the sea, with a small part of the menu changing each month to highlight a different country. This month, Greece was featured. When Morgan and Bill arrived with the girls, everyone was dressed nicely. Bill wore jeans with a sport coat, while Hank had a blazer over his khakis. The ladies sported lovely dresses, and Morgan had styled the girls' hair. Once they sat down, the girls were buzzing with excitement, and it took a bit for them to settle down. Bella told the waitress, "Our mom works here." Hank thought that would get her attention, and it did. It was easy to recognize her as she walked over. There couldn't be too many chefs approaching their table, and he could see some of the girls' features on her face. She wasn't a supermodel, but she was charming, even in her chef uniform, which hid her curves. As she got closer, Hank stood up, followed by Bill, who got a nudge from Morgan to stand as well. Julia smiled as she walked over, noticing both men standing for her. "Hi, I'm Julia. You must be Hank. It's nice to meet you." "The pleasure is mine, Julia. Thank you for bringing everyone. I think this is the first time they've all eaten here together." "I'm happy to do it. I wanted you to see me since I spend time with your family. This felt like a good chance." "I'm glad you did. The girls have had a wonderful summer, and Aunt Morgan appreciates your help at the food bank. Spending time there with them has been good for me, too." She took a moment to take that in. They chatted for a few minutes, and even though it was early on a Wednesday evening, the restaurant was starting to get busy, so Julia needed to return to the kitchen. Before she left, Hank took a picture of her with her family. Morgan said, "Please send that to me." He agreed. With that done, Hank sat back to enjoy his dinner. Everyone seemed to be having a lovely time, and the food was delicious. Before they left, Julia came out again to thank them for coming, gave her girls a kiss, and thanked Hank for treating them. She shook his hand before they turned to go. Hank noticed the girls turning around and smiling at their mother while Morgan guided them out. Later that week, Hank took the afternoon to take Morgan and the girls to a water park. Morgan stayed cool under an umbrella, wearing her hat and sunglasses while keeping an eye on their things. Hank enjoyed all the rides with the girls, and they got soaked quickly. The girls had a wonderful time and fell asleep in the SUV on their way back to the food bank. Hank helped them into Morgan's car, and she drove them home. On the drive back, Morgan and Hank talked about planning another fishing trip the following week and having a fish fry the next Sunday when Julia wasn't scheduled to work. The only message Hank received recently from Barcelona was from Morales' cat's mom. It simply said, "You are missed. I wish you were here." He replied, "Miss you too." She responded, "It's not just me who misses you, but she won't admit it." He texted back, "That's why I'm not there. Love you." She sent him a sad emoji and replied, "Love you too. Come visit me no matter what." He wrote, "Will do. You're always welcome here with me. You can stay as long as you want." He laughed when the 69-year-old woman sent him a smiley emoji and replied, "Careful, I may take you up on that." That night, he called his son Eric, who was still in college. Eric was aware that Hank had been busy traveling, and he had been studying a lot too. They talked for a few minutes about life in Pittsburgh and Asheville. As Hank was about to hang up, Eric asked, "Dad, have you heard from Mom? She hasn't called me. I was wondering how her work in Spain is going." "I tried calling her, but she didn't answer. She sent me a text saying sorry. I spoke to Tina and Scott last week, and they were very busy with filming. It feels like she doesn't have time for us anymore. Do you think we did something to push her away?" Hank shook his head. "No, I don't think so. She's very focused on her career and hasn't paid much attention to us lately. I was hoping that my not going to Spain would remind her of what matters, but it seems it didn't. It surprised me and Eva. It worries us too. Have you tried calling her again?" "Once. Like you, I only got a text back. You might want to try again, but don't lose sleep over it. She knows she has a family that loves her. We can't make her want to spend time with us." Eric replied, "I feel the same way. Love you, son." "We love you too, Dad." After hanging up, Hank shook his head. Even if she was not alone, he wondered if Kat would realize what she had given up along the way. Would it matter to her? Fishing was on the following Tuesday. They didn't catch as many fish as on their last trip, but they had a great time. Again, Hank ordered food for them, and this time the girls wanted pizza. With the fish not biting as much, the girls were more excited about the pizza than the fishing. Later, Morgan and Julia arrived to pick up the girls. Julia shook Scott's hand and invited him to come hungry for the fish fry planned for Sunday night. This was the first time he had seen Julia's hair and everyday clothes. It confirmed what he had thought: she was a lovely woman. While some might find Catalina more attractive, Julia's shoulder-length brown hair and sparkling green eyes were very nice. She smiled with a gentle charm that won over her girls and even caught Hank's attention. He asked, "Julia, since it looks like you're free this Sunday, would you like to take the girls for a short hike that morning?" She seemed to think about it and replied, "I think they would enjoy that. Why don't you come over early for breakfast and we can leave afterward?" "That works for me," Hank said. During the week, he chatted with his daughter Eva. Their talk was much like the one he had with his son. Eva was busy with her job and had been happy with her independence for the past year. She planned to spend Labor Day with him, whether in Pittsburgh or Asheville, which made him very glad. He told her to plan for Asheville. Later that Saturday afternoon, he got another video call from Scott and Tina. Hank answered, "Hey, how's everything? Did you start cooking on time?" Scott replied, "We did, but it's been tough. We haven't had much sleep this week. For these last 4 weeks of filming, everything had been carefully planned around her shopping at specific markets or cooking in this new kitchen. Now, Felicia wants shots of her shopping at some different stores and at the beach. We're not ready for that. We don't have the right equipment, and we're short on time to prepare. I'm not even sure I can find what we need for the camera work she wants. The Queen's answer to all this is just to figure it out." Hank laughed. "I've seen your contract. She has to cover your costs. Just get what you need and don't stress about it." "I know, but it's frustrating. If you were here, you could help talk her out of some of this. Worst case, you could check out the beach and give me tips on planning it, which would save me time." "Sorry, Scott. She won't listen to me anymore either. She doesn't answer my calls." Tina added, "Speaking of that, there's something important we need to discuss with you. We don't want to worry you, but we think you should know." "Oh, what's happening?" Tina went on. "Some guy from the local soccer team has been coming by every day this week. He's quite popular here. You might find it hard to believe, but that team is almost as loved as the Steelers and Penguins together. Kat thought having him on her show could help her in Barcelona. She and this guy have been acting friendly. Nothing too obvious yet. Scott and I aren't thrilled. We're keeping quiet, but we're worried. I don't know if you've seen her social media, but it looks like she met him and some of the FC Barcelona team while out with Felicia and Sheila last weekend. She posted all about it. No, I've been deliberately not paying attention to her. All I want is for her to say sorry and come home. Since that doesn't seem likely to happen soon, I'm focusing on what's happening here." "That's probably a good idea," Tina replied. I told her that this time apart could lead to a divorce if she uses it as a chance to explore other options. Scott added, "We get it. Her mom visits every day. Felicia and Sheila clearly don't like it, but at least they have enough sense to stay quiet. It's amusing. When her mother is around, Kat and the soccer guy talk casually in English but switch to Spanish when she leaves. I think she forgets Tina can understand them. Trust me, their chats are much more playful in Spanish." Thank goodness for Morellis, but I shouldn't have to rely on my mother-in-law to fix my marriage. No, I think we are nearing the end. We're sorry to share this sad news, Hank, but we thought you should know. You're good friends, and I appreciate it. If there's ever anything I can do for you, just ask. Well, if we stop working on the show, we might need your help for a while. You're always welcome with me. Thanks, Hank. Take care. You too. Hank thought about that conversation for a few moments and decided to go for a run to burn off some energy and frustration. He shook his head in confusion, though he would not let himself feel shocked. Disappointed? Yes. Shocked? No. Once he was out of the house and on the road, he could still hear the conversation he had with Kat, as if it had just happened. Of course, this was probably the 10th time he had replayed it in his mind. He hoped it would be the last time, but he doubted it. 8 weeks ago. Catalina had been spending more time in New York at Sheila's request. He couldn't blame her, as that was where many network executives worked. Kat and Sheila had been trying for months to get meetings with them to convince them to give Kat her own show. She seemed close to landing a deal with a big cable network for her show, but she was often away. She never said sorry for embarrassing him last year during their month-long shoot in Madrid, Spain. They had rented an apartment that needed fixing up. He and Kat worked with Sheila and Felicia to get the place prepared during the first 2 weeks, and then they planned to film a cooking show during the last 2 weeks. They produced 16 episodes over 4 weeks. It was their 4th time doing this kind of project, the first time abroad, and the first time with Sheila and Felicia. She and Hank arrived a few days early to relax and explore the city. When they checked on the apartment, it wasn't ready for filming. Kat and Hank made calls and did everything they could to ensure it would be set by the time Scott and Tina, along with the local workers, arrived. On the first day of filming, many things were still unclear. Hank tried to help and worked alongside the contractors with Kat. Unfortunately, his Spanish wasn't very good, so he often needed to repeat himself or have the workers repeat their words. Sheila and Felicia edited the episodes in a way that made Hank look unprepared for the first 6 shows. Scott and Tina didn't edit those episodes as before, and were unaware that Hank would be surprised by how he was shown on screen. By the end of the 6th episode, Hank was upset. People at his job were shocked because they knew him to be very smart. He was high up in a major company. Several sponsors were surprised as well, having known Kat and Hank for years. The show looked fantastic. The apartment, especially the kitchen, was impressive. The cooking segments and local market visits were lively and enjoyable. No one understood why Hank had been made to look foolish in the early episodes. Hank and Kat had a big fight about it. She said, "Felicia and Sheila were trying to bring humor to the show." She added, "Everyone who knows you realizes you aren't really like that. It's reality TV. People know it's staged, and you were just acting." Hank replied angrily, "Do you know how many calls I've gotten from family, friends, and co-workers asking if we are getting a divorce? That's the only way they make sense of how I was shown. They can't think of another reason why you would be so upset with me. I'm not exaggerating. That's what people are saying." "Oh, lighten up, Francis. Nobody believes that," she said. "They all know how much I care about you." "I guess they do. Your show showed that to them in the first 6 episodes." That made her stop for a moment. She replied, "I keep telling you that everyone knows reality TV isn't real. They will forget about it soon. The last few episodes were some of my best. They got great ratings and are getting national attention." Hank said, "I thought I knew you, Kat. I trusted you to look out for me, just like I would look out for you. While it might not have been on purpose, it's clear I don't matter enough for you to stand up for. I mean it. If I thought you were trying to hurt me on purpose, I would ask for a divorce right now." Instead of being shocked, she looked annoyed by his words. "You must be joking. We've spent 13 years building this career together, and at the first sign that someone teases you about something you did, you're ready to leave me? Fine, go ahead. You make a good salary. but I make just as much now, so I won't be the one losing out. Kat, I love you. I've loved you for 26 years, but I'm going to leave the house for a few days, or we might say things we can't take back. But remember this, until I get a real apology from you, don't expect me to help with your career anymore. Kat was angry. Who did he think he was, suggesting she couldn't succeed without him? She didn't need his support and was about to tell him that, but she stopped when she saw the hurt in his eyes. It was the first time she had ever seen that look from him. So instead, she let him go, thinking that some space would help them both calm down. She believed that with Sheila and Felicia's help, she would get her national show soon enough. Hank would see it was worth it. Kat was busy and tired most of the time. Her schedule was packed with filming, meeting with sponsors, and traveling to New York to talk with network executives. Hank hardly saw her. When he asked if things would slow down soon, she could only promise improvement. She said, "Once I get to the top of the mountain, it will be easier. I'm almost there, sweetie. Just hang in there a little longer." He would try. With her away so much, it no longer bothered him if he had to travel. On the few nights she was home, she complained that he wasn't there for her. Her focus on herself seemed to be getting worse. 8 weeks had passed since their last big fight, and Hank still hadn't received his apology. Their relationship remained tense. They avoided talking about the main issue, but it lingered in the air. In Hank's mind, their marriage no longer felt real. She didn't seem to care about what was happening or how her actions were affecting Hank and their family. Their children missed her, too. She and Hank hardly spoke about their jobs or the kids. While the children tried to reach out to their mother, they knew that if they needed help with anything important, it was their father who would be there for them. Hank decided to try one last time to talk to Kat. He didn't have high hopes. He planned to visit their factory in Hendersonville, North Carolina, for a week, followed by a 3-week trip to Australia and Singapore for work. This way, he would leave before she started filming in Spain. If she changed her mind and apologized, he could cancel his plans and go with her, but he thought he would still be going to Asia. One Sunday morning, after they had attended a Pirates game together the night before, Hank confronted her. "Kat, I need to talk to you for a few minutes. It's important," he said. She took a sip of her coffee and looked at her phone, raising her eyebrows as if waiting for him to continue. "Can you please put your phone down?" he requested. With a sigh, she replied sarcastically, "I'm all yours." "I'm not going with you to Spain," he said firmly. That caught her attention. "What? Why not? You have vacation time. Why can't you get away?" "It's not about time off or work. I just don't want to go." "Why not?" she pressed. "I never got the apology from you for what happened last year, and I won't let it happen again." She huffed. "Oh, come on. We talked about that. It was nothing. It was something important to me. Even Robert, the CEO, asked if I was going this year and advised me to ensure that nothing in the show makes our company look bad." "No way. Don't tell me he doesn't understand reality TV," she said while shaking her head. "Why does it matter if others don't see it's just a show? It doesn't affect your job." Hank shook his head in disbelief. "Do you have any idea what I do, Kat? Do you understand my responsibilities? Ever heard of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act? As the CFO, I have to sign off on our financial statements with Robert, the CEO. If we file anything wrong, we could face serious consequences. Our shareholders and Robert don't want to see someone in my position made to look foolish. You may not have meant to, but you hurt me both personally and professionally. I won't let that happen again. I need to look after myself, even if my wife doesn't understand." She responded, "I can't believe this. You're part of the team. How are we going to find someone to replace you at the last minute?" "I'm confident you will figure it out. I'm giving you a month's notice instead of surprising you, like you did with those episodes last year." Slowly, she began to understand how much he was hurting. She needed to consider that. Still, he was risking damage to her show. How could he do that? "I can't believe you're just walking away after all these years we've worked together. There's more, Kat." He took out an envelope from his messenger bag, which he had used the previous night when he couldn't sleep. "In this envelope are some papers from my lawyer. In Pennsylvania, if we don't both agree to a divorce, we have to be separated for a year before I can start the process. Today marks the beginning of that separation." If we can't fix our issues in that year, I will file for divorce. But if you want to speed things up and agree to part ways, we can do that too. You should have a lawyer look at these papers. They're fair and don't affect your work. Are you serious? After 26 years, you're just going to leave without trying to save our marriage? No. I want to save our marriage. I've been trying to get you to see that we've needed to address our issues for the past 10 months. You don't seem to think anything is wrong. Honestly, Kat, I feel like we want different things in life now. That's not true. I want us to work on our marriage and my career. How can we do that if you don't come to Spain with me? How can we keep going if you let Sheila and Felicia embarrass me again? He noticed her jaw tighten at his words. He guessed she couldn't see his side of things, only hers. He continued, "We're not a couple anymore. We're barely friends. What started as a shared effort has turned into your solo journey. I don't blame you for focusing on your career. It's yours, not mine. But it feels like our lives revolve around your work, the publicity, the social media, and all the travel. How many nights have we actually spent together in the last 6 months? We hardly talk, and when we do, you're often distracted by your phone or something else that needs your attention." She suggested, "You could quit your job and come with me. We could work together all the time. I make as much as you do now. Once I get my national show, we won't need your salary. Even if I don't get my own show, we'll be okay, especially when you start making money from your options in a few years. We are saving money quickly, and we could both retire soon if we wanted to. Except we both know that you won't want to. Honey, I'm popular right now. I don't expect it to last forever, so I want to make the most of this time while I still can. I would love for us to do this together. Kat, until the last year, we have worked together. You've had your family, friends, plus Tina and Scott supporting you. But something has changed in the last 12 to 18 months. I think it is Sheila and Felicia, but maybe it's you. I enjoyed working with you while you were making a name here. I support your goal to go national, but I can't agree with how it's happening. I'm leaving soon for a week in North Carolina at our factory. Then I'm off to Australia and Singapore for 3 weeks. After that, you'll be in Spain for 4 weeks. That means we will be apart for 2 months. I hope you'll miss me while I'm gone, and when you return, we can work on fixing our marriage. What if I find out I don't need you anymore while we are apart? Aren't you worried that might happen? I actually think you may already feel that way. I hope this talk and those papers will show you that I'm serious and want us to find our way back. I care about you and want us to be together, but we need to be equal partners. We are not there right now. And one more thing, we are still married. You can't be with anyone else while we are trying to work this out. If I find out that you have, it's over for us." That made her angry. "I have never cheated on you, and I've had chances. Should I applaud you for that? Or are you hinting that it might happen someday?" You can be so annoying sometimes. No, I don't want to cheat on you, but you have been making me very upset. Why can't you support my career more? He just looked at her, thinking about their 13 years together. How could she not see his point? Shaking his head, Hank stood up from the table and went to the guest bedroom. It was easy for him to pack since she was gone a lot and didn't notice the 2 bags already in the guest closet. She followed him and watched him get ready to leave. It only took a few minutes. As he prepared to walk out the door for the last time, she said, "I do love you, Henry. I love you too, Catalina. I really want us to fix our marriage." As he drove away, he thought to himself, "I just wish you cared for me a bit more than your job." Watching him leave, she felt sure he would return. She wasn't anxious about the paperwork. He would never actually leave her. She was surprised he had decided not to go to Spain, but believed he would be there waiting when she got back. In the next moment, she pondered how to plan the shoot without him in the cast. Now, back in the present, after talking to Scott and Tina and not hearing from her for 4 weeks, he guessed that when she did come home, they might decide to split up. Or maybe not. He had no idea. He thought he might try one last time to persuade her to work on their marriage unless she did something really foolish. But then again, maybe he was the foolish one. He wasn't sure, but he could be wrong. He hated the waiting. After more than 25 years, she deserved a few more weeks before leaving Spain. He felt bad for not wanting to think about her and their marriage. When he did think about it, all he felt was pain. In that moment, He understood how some people could drown their sorrows in a drink. He was glad he had chosen to run many miles instead. When he got home, he checked Kat's social media for the first time in a while. There were photos of her on set with Sheila, shopping and visiting tourist spots, along with a few pictures of her with Marilise, and then came the pictures from clubs. Those pictures upset him. Her outfit was too revealing and much too short for someone her age. Sure, she looked good, but she was married and wearing that outfit surrounded by half the FC Barcelona soccer team. Her caption read, "My mom, who lives nearby, will be so jealous." He was tempted to send it to Morellis and ask, "Jealous yet?" But he didn't want Kat to know he was watching her. He also didn't think it was Morellis's job to fix their marriage. He was fairly sure Kat had given up on that idea. But he wanted to try, at least for himself, knowing he could look in the mirror every day and say he did what he could, even if she didn't. So he typed, "Jealous yet?" and hit send, wondering if he would get a reply. The next morning, he saw Morellis's response. It said, "Not jealous, furious. She and I are not happy with each other." Hank drove to Morgan and Bill's place for breakfast, and it felt special. Julia and Morgan had put in a lot of effort to prepare a big meal for everyone. Hank appreciated being married to someone who enjoyed cooking. He thanked her and Morgan a lot for their help. Morgan made them sandwiches and packed some chips and granola for their hike. Hank put everything in his backpack for their short trip. They loaded the girls into his SUV and drove to the parking area for the Black Balsam Knob hike, located just off the Blue Ridge Parkway southwest of Asheville. At 5 miles round trip, it was a short hike, but since Bella was only 8, he wanted to keep it easy and fun for her. The hike became very nice after passing a group of large fir trees. It opened up into a long path through a meadow, leading to the summit. At 6,200 feet, they would only gain about 300 feet in height during their walk. In the warm summer, the path was filled with wildflowers, blueberries, and blackberries. Among the rocky areas, blooming rhododendron and mountain laurel added more color. Honeybees and bumblebees buzzed happily from flower to flower. While many other hikes in the Smokies could be hard, this one was just a pleasant walk on one of the most beautiful paths in the mountains. At the rocky top, they could see far and wide as they sat together and enjoyed their sandwiches and snacks. On the way up, the girls stopped often to look at everything, which made the trip take longer. They took many pictures along the way, including a group photo at the top. On the way down, they were content and moved at a relaxed pace, stopping less often. Many people they met smiled and said hello. It made sense. The 4 of them looked like a happy family. Julia noticed this too. Julia almost cried when she saw Bella reach over and take Hank's hand while going down. It was a sweet moment, but it also made her think about needing to set some boundaries if Hank was not going to be around for long. Yet for that moment, she found herself wishing things were different. The girls chatted happily on the drive back. Even though they hadn't done much hiking, Hank expected they would fall asleep in the back seat. They didn't. Julia, however, was quiet and needed to be drawn into the conversation. When they got back to Morgan and Bill's house in the afternoon, Julia asked him to be there at 6 o'clock. Hank wasn't sure what to think about Julia's behavior, but he could see that the girls had a good time. That was a good thing. Later that afternoon, Hank returned with a cooler filled with drinks and a couple of bottles of wine. He even brought a nice bottle of scotch to share with anyone who wanted to try some. When he arrived, he noticed many cars parked along the long driveway leading to the house. Children were running around while adults stood chatting. He could even see some smoke drifting from the backyard. Bill spotted him and waved him over. He met several of their friends and neighbors. One of the women even worked at the same factory where Hank had been. Soon he met Bill and Morgan's children and their partners, who had come for the gathering. Bill's grandkids were playing with Amber and Bella, making him feel quite at home. When Bella and Amber paused their playing to hug him, everyone around smiled. Eventually, it was announced that dinner was ready, and there was a big spread of food. They served fried catfish, crappie, and shrimp, along with baked pecan-crusted catfish. There were several salads and a tasty dish made with lima beans from Bill's garden, served with the heirloom tomatoes he grew. They also had hush puppies and spicy cornbread. Another table was filled with desserts. Hank spent most of the evening talking with Bill and Morgan about Pittsburgh and what was happening in Asheville. After dinner and dessert, he went inside to help wash the dishes, which was typical for him. If someone was kind enough to cook, he believed the least he could do was help clean up. Morgan let him help for about 15 minutes before having Bill pull him back outside. Bill joked, "You're going to make the rest of us look bad." As the sun set, some adults were watching the Atlanta Braves game inside, while others were out back playing horseshoes, but most were just talking. The kids continued to run around, and Bill had Hank chatting with a few of his neighbors. Julia approached, carrying 3 beers. She playfully bumped her hip into Hank's and handed a beer to both him and Bill. She invited Hank to join her for a moment. Underneath an oak tree, she had set up a couple of lawn chairs where they could watch the backyard activities without being in the middle of everything. Once they were seated, Hank said, "Thank you for the beer and the food. I don't know how much you made, but everything I had was delicious." "Thank you. I had lots of help, and really it was Aunt Morgan who planned most of it. I just made 3 dishes," she replied. Hank laughed. "Only 3? I know how much work that can be." She smiled, gathering her thoughts for what she wanted to say next. "I really wanted to thank you for this afternoon. I loved the hike, but what I appreciated most was seeing how happy and relaxed Amber and Bella were. This feels like the best summer they've had in years." "I'm glad to hear that. They're wonderful girls," Hank replied, feeling pleased. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "Why are you so interested in the girls? I know you're not a stalker or anything like that. It was pretty easy to find out who you are, and it really shocked me. You look so different without the beard you had on your wife's show." He laughed at that. "My Aunt Morgan and I both appreciate what you've done for the girls, but why? They weren't in any terrible situation. What made you want to help them?" He took a moment to gather his thoughts and replied, "Honestly, I've seen them once in a while over the last few years when I helped out at the food bank. My first week here this summer, I was about to unload a truck. When I took the paperwork to Morgan, I saw Amber and Bella reading in her office. Bella, as you probably know, is very chatty, so she asked if she could talk to me while I worked. Morgan said it was okay, and we talked while I unloaded. She seemed happy to chat, so I let her. She shared what they were doing this summer, how they were staying with Morgan while you worked, and how you were a great chef at a local restaurant. She really admires you. I remember when my daughter Eva was their age, and she had so much fun at summer camps. I asked Bella about camps around here, and she told me about some her friends went to. I asked her if she ever went, and she said no. I then asked if she would like to, and she said yes. After that, it was easy to see if there were any scholarships for a couple of deserving girls. You've raised some nice girls, so I thought I would try to help. I know you're busy, and I wanted to give them some attention. I'm sorry if I crossed any lines." She laughed. "Yes, I suppose you did, but I appreciate it. Summers are usually quite boring for them. This one has been great so far. Can I ask you another question?" "Of course. Did you have anything to do with the summer camp scholarships and the laptop and iPad?" He shrugged and said, "Maybe just a little." She laughed and said, "You are persistent, aren't you?" When it comes to helping, I try to lean toward asking for forgiveness rather than permission. I truly just wanted to do something nice for the girls. It's hard to say no to them. He wondered how difficult it would be to say no to Julia, then told himself to stop thinking that way. He was still married, mostly. Julia said, "Since you were getting involved in their lives, I looked into you. It wasn't hard once I typed in your company name and CFO. I was surprised. I like your wife's show. She isn't on the PBS channels around here, but we've seen what you both have done on YouTube and her website. I'm surprised my daughters haven't recognized you yet. When you told Bill your wife was traveling, did that mean she's away working?" "Yes, she is. She's in Barcelona, Spain, filming a lot of episodes. I used to be involved, but not this year. Last year, she showed me in a not-so-great way in several episodes. I've tried to explain to her how those episodes affected me, but she doesn't understand. I didn't want to risk my job with whatever her plans were this year, so I took some work trips and have been working from our factory. We haven't talked since she left for Spain." "I'm sorry to hear that. It's okay. I'm not happy about it, but I've spent the last year trying to fix our marriage. I can't do it alone." They both took sips from their bottles and watched what was happening in the backyard. He asked, "Can I ask you something?" She smiled and said, "Sure." What about the girl's father? I'm guessing there was once a Mr. LeBlanc? There was. He was from Louisiana, and I met him in Charlotte where he worked for a pipeline company. He was moved to New Orleans, which made him very happy, and it was a promotion with a good raise. I went with him and studied at the New Orleans Culinary and Hospitality Institute. We found out we were expecting before I graduated, but I was close. We had Amber, and I was pregnant with Bella when he got seriously hurt on an oil rig. He couldn't go back to working on rigs, so he was transferred back to Charlotte. The problem was that he became dependent on the pain medicine he was given during his recovery. Things got worse over time. He stopped going to work, and both I and his employer tried to get him into treatment. He went in and out of treatment for months, but eventually he stopped looking for help. It was a tough time at home. After Bella was born, I brought the girls here to stay with Aunt Morgan and Uncle Bill. Sadly, Adam got deeper into the medicine, and one day, after taking too many pills, he tried to drive and got into a crash. We didn't have much saved, and he had turned down the insurance from his job to save money, which left us in a lot of debt. We've lived here ever since. Once the girls were in school, I began working as a cook. I worked my way up in better jobs and restaurants, and now I'm called a chef, but I haven't finished my education. The restaurant I work at is one of the better ones around, and it's one of two owned by my employers, who like to call everyone chefs. He laughed lightly. Well, everything I've had from you has been very good. Living with Catalina for a long time has made my taste more refined. I'm also sorry about your husband. That must have been hard. Thanks. She paused for a moment and then asked, So, do you plan to just be Uncle Hank to the girls? Are you going to stick around after summer? If you plan to leave, please don't get too close to them. I worry about that a bit. That makes sense. Yes, I'll be Mr. Hank, but Uncle Hank is fine too. Honestly, I don't know what will happen. Kat has 2 more weeks in Spain, then maybe a week in New York, then back to Pittsburgh, I think. There is some worrying news about what she is doing in Spain when she's not filming. If she wants to work on our marriage when she comes back, then we will. Honestly, I'm not sure if it can be saved. If she doesn't want to try, I might look for a way to move here and work at the local factory. That's all I know right now. Thank you for sharing that. It helps. If you don't mind, let's stick with Mr. Hank until you see what will happen. If you end up spending more time here, I'd be fine with you becoming Uncle Hank. I would like that too. If you need someone to talk to, just let me know. I know we don't see each other much, but I can always meet you. Wait. Sorry. Meeting a married man for lunch might seem strange. Just come by when I'm not working. Uncle Bill will probably be here, or you can call me in the mornings before I go to the restaurant. I have my reputation and the girls to think about, so I shouldn't give the impression that I'm dating a married man. I understand completely. You're lovely and talented, so I can see how others might think you are seeing someone if they catch you with a man. I appreciate you listening. Even though I'll be back to Pittsburgh for just a couple of days next week, I will miss the girls while I'm gone. They have really helped me while I've been here. I'm glad. Thanks for looking after them. They have enjoyed the time you've spent with them. Oh, about dating, I'm not looking. I don't have the time. He found it interesting that she offered that without being asked. He said, This coming week will be interesting. The first episode from this filming in Spain will air on Thursday on PBS stations that show her work. Oh, I wish I could see that. Anytime you want, just let me know. We have a computer here that connects directly to the server the videographer uses. He doesn't do the editing anymore, but it holds all the raw footage and backups for previous episodes. Basically, everything she has done is stored there, including her new work. I can see why she's popular. She's beautiful and talented with a lot of energy. It really shows on camera. I agree. It really does. I'll put last season's episodes on a thumb drive and give them to Morgan tomorrow before I fly out. Maybe one day when you are not busy, you all can come over to watch the latest episode. I can cook for everyone, or if needed, we can order takeout. She laughed. Oh no, you've offered to cook, and I accept. You're stuck with that now. I want to see what you can make after being with Catalina for so long. He laughed too, and Morgan, who had been watching them, felt happy about it. Now she hoped Hank would leave his wife. She knew she shouldn't think that way, but she couldn't help it. Julia was a good mother, but her job took up a lot of her time. Having Hank around was a blessing for the girls, and she wanted that to continue. Hank felt good when he left that night. Julia was glad to see that he cared about her girls. She would admit to herself that he seemed like a nice guy, but she was serious about not dating married men. However, if he were to become single. Hank dropped off the thumb drive with Morgan as promised and flew back to Pittsburgh. He had good meetings with Robert and his team. A big investor was in town, and they needed to impress them. When Robert asked Hank when he would return to the Pittsburgh office, Hank said, "I wanted to discuss that. During COVID-19, we showed we could work well from home. I would like you to consider letting me keep working from our factory in North Carolina. I can come back here once a month if necessary. I haven't made any plans yet, but Kat and I don't seem to be improving, and I enjoy it there." Robert replied, "I'm sorry to hear about you and Kat. That's really unfortunate. If things don't improve between you two, we can try it out. But if it becomes too hard for everyone with you working from there, you may need to be ready to move back. Does that sound fair?" "That's fair. Thanks for considering it," Hank said. "Hopefully it won't come to that. By the way, how much longer will Kat be in Spain?" "This week and next, plus a week in New York. The first episode of this year's show from Spain is set to air this Thursday." "I'll be interested to see how it goes without you," Robert remarked. "I doubt she'll have any trouble with it." "We'll see. Take care, Hank. Let me know if we can help." "Will do." Hank had dinner with Eva and Eric each night he was in town. It was nice to see them, but there was a lot of tension because of the uncertainty with him and Kat. He returned to Asheville on Thursday and went straight to the food bank to help in the afternoon. When the girls arrived, they both hugged him tightly. He was surprised at how nice it felt to see them again. Morgan watched the happy hugs and felt warm inside. That night, he streamed the first episode of her new show from Scott's server. It looked impressive. The first episode always sets up the plan and shows computer images of what they hope to achieve. This year, the apartment was much bigger than last year's, meaning more work ahead. It was a big project, but with money from her sponsors and potential sales, it seemed she was on the right track. All the extra efforts should make for some interesting episodes. Kat appeared just as lovely as ever, looking fresh and radiant. After he finished watching, he sent messages to Scott and Tina to congratulate them on their work. He also reached out to Catalina, congratulating her and asking if he could call her the next day, Friday. She replied, asking him to call her on Saturday after lunch. He agreed. On Saturday, Hank woke up early to call Kat. Before he did, he wondered if this call would lead to anything significant. She picked up on the first ring. "Hey, how are you?" "What did you think?" she asked right away. "I'm good. The show felt like you picked up right from last year. It looked great." "How are you?" he replied. "Tired but managing. We had a good week cooking. Mom's involved in an episode, and I think it will turn out well. The apartment is coming along. Are you still traveling?" "Yes, I'm working from Asheville and staying at our house here." "Oh, is that going well?" "It's work. Nothing too exciting. How about you? Still busy at the clubs?" he asked. She hesitated, but knew he would ask since her mother had mentioned it before. "Oh, that? I'm just trying to meet more people and make a good impression around town. Barcelona could be potential viewers one day. One of their players visited the set, and he and his family own many villas along the coast. They might sponsor some episodes. Wouldn't that be amazing?" "Sounds promising." "It could be. Just think, if I had sponsors in Spain, we could come here more often and write it off as business." "That sounds wonderful, Kat." "Listen, dear, Sheila is here for us to go shopping. I need to go. Have a great day." "You too." There were no sweet words or terms of endearment, no "I love you." At least she asked how he was doing. Hank called Tina, and Scott answered. "Hey, buddy. How's Asheville treating you?" Hank laughed. "It's good. I've got a guest bedroom ready for you two. How was your week?" "I just spoke with Kat, and she mentioned the cooking episodes are going well. It's nice Marilis is in one of them." "I think they're okay. Nothing special, in my opinion." "The episode featuring Marilis should be interesting." "Why's that? Even though she's almost 70, she should look good on TV, and she's a nice lady." "Oh, she definitely looks nice on camera. And she is sweet, but I'm not sure the audience will see that without a lot of editing." Hank asked, "What happened?" Tina replied, "You might not like this, Hank." "Oh, no." Her boyfriend, the soccer player, was on set every day this week. He's in several episodes, including the one with Morales. She was glaring at him the whole time. Yesterday, I heard her tell him in Spanish that if he came back next week, there would be trouble. Hank sighed. Oh no. If she said that, it makes me worry about what she really thinks. In one episode, the boyfriend got a bit too close to Kat when they were cooking. I nearly fell off my chair. Scott and I are both thinking about quitting. It feels like we're supporting what she's doing. No, don't break your contract. You need to get paid. Scott said, I don't know if she's involved with him or not, but it's clear that she and her friends are meeting him and others out at night. It may not be all over her social media, but it is on his. Wow, I warned her. I won't put up with this kind of nonsense. Tina said, we still don't know anything for sure. They have been discussing remaking some family properties and turning them into several series. Maybe she's just being friendly for business, but it seems a bit too much. Scott and I will keep watching. I suspect she thinks we won't say anything because we're worried about our jobs. But I'm with you. We'll get through next week, then we'll leave. We've got some savings. I hope to cut back once we had kids, so that will give us time to find something new. Hank shook his head. His wife was making everything difficult. Well, I have extra rooms. You can always stay here and look for something nearby. It seems this is where I'm going to be anyway. We're sorry, Hank. Me too. Just do your best so your work looks good. Will do. Take care. You too. Once again, Hank felt lost. He wanted to save his marriage, but it takes two. He thought about Morales, chuckled, and sent her a message. Trouble? It didn't take long for her to reply. Absolutely. Even if I don't mean it literally, I can slip and hurt him by accident. You know, when women get older, they can be forgetful, especially with sharp objects. Don't make me come and bail you out, she responded with a smiley emoji. Only if that means you'll visit me. At least I still have one child who's not acting out. Yes, Catalina is an only child, so I mean you. You're coming here for Thanksgiving and staying through Christmas. Get ready for it. You always know how to make me smile, Hank said. It's just because I really enjoy seeing your lovely smile. Flatterer. Okay, I'm sold. Will my grandkids be around? Oh, I'm sad that you aren't coming just for me. You're still married to my silly daughter. If you weren't, I might think about it. He wasn't sure how to reply to that. Then he got another smiley emoji and a message saying, Take care, Hank. Many people love you, including me. I'm sure she does too, but she's about to make a mistake. Love you too, Mamacita. Stop that. You know I dislike being called that. He smiled, but almost spilled his tea when she texted, I only let my close friends call me that, with a wink emoji. Clearly, someone had taught her how to use emojis. Probably Tina. This made Hank smile for a moment. He really liked his mother-in-law. Sigh. Too bad she didn't have another daughter like her. The next day at lunch, Hank hoped they would enjoy his cooking. He bought everything he needed the day before and left early to get fresh pita bread from a bakery. He made homemade sausages and Moroccan-spiced grilled chicken over creamy polenta with cheese. He also made a spinach salad with nuts and feta cheese. For dipping with the pita, he prepared hummus and a roasted tomato sauce with onion and cheese. They would have store-bought ice cream for dessert. When he heard their car, he went outside to greet them. The girls looked amazed as they took in the view. It was a big 5-bedroom house made of stone, sitting high on a hill with a great view of the Smokies. Inside, he showed them around, highlighting the large kitchen, beautiful yard, and pool area. Hank said, Julia, anytime you or Morgan or Bill want to bring them to swim, you're welcome. The key is under that flower pot, so I don't need to be here. The girls looked at their mother with hopeful eyes. To the girls, she said, We'll talk about it later, but only if you eat your lunch well. They did. Hank had told her about the pool, and she promised to bring swimsuits for the girls. He received many compliments on his food. Julia said, I'm impressed. It's clear you've been paying attention or practicing. Nice job. A bit of both. Thanks. Did you watch the episodes? She replied, We did. I must say we were surprised by those first episodes. I don't want to upset you, but how could she not see how bad that looked? The last few episodes in the kitchen were really enjoyable. At least she should have her fans wanting more. Morgan and Bill shook their heads. Hank shrugged. I don't know. I've tried to explain to her how much this can affect her and the kids, but she doesn't want to listen. To be honest, I think she's only focused on becoming famous right now. I feel bad for our kids, but if she won't listen, there's no point in trying to bring her back to reality. Are you ready to watch the new episode? Hank played the episode while they enjoyed their ice cream. When it was over, Bella said, "Mister, Hank, until Mama paused the show to show us you and your wife, we didn't know that was you. We didn't know you were well known." Hank chuckled. "Ha ha ha, I'm not famous. She is." Morgan added, "I believe her family helped her a lot to get there." He didn't want to discuss that, so he simply replied, "She did." Morgan helped Hank clean up while Julia got the swimsuits for the girls. They were eager to go swimming. After cleaning up, Hank changed and met the girls in the pool. He was surprised but happy when Julia joined them in her swimsuit. Bill went inside to watch the Braves game, but Morgan stayed outside for the more exciting swimming. After everyone was tired, they changed, and the girls wanted to watch more episodes of Cat, which featured Hank. He set it up so they could watch while Morgan and Julia stayed with them. Hank then got a drink for himself and Bill and joined him to watch the game. Later, they ordered Chinese food for dinner. When it was time to leave, everyone thanked him for being such a great host and for a fun day. He received hugs from the girls, a kiss on the cheek from Morgan and Julia, and a handshake from Bill. By the time Hank got into bed, he realized he had a wonderful day. Over at Morgan and Bill's house, everyone felt the same way. The next day, while the girls were still at camp, Hank came by to get the keys for the truck and pick up some donated food. Morgan saw him walking toward her office. After he entered to grab the keys, she stood and closed the door behind him. When he turned around, she hugged him tightly. "I don't know what your plans are, Hank, but I hope you stay here. You've really helped those girls and their mom. They are not in a bad place, but they are much happier because of you. Thank you for that. They've become special to me, too. Such sweet girls. I'm not sure what will happen, but I'll find a way to be part of their lives, assuming Julia will allow it. Don't worry. I think she's starting to realize that having you around will help everyone feel better." Hank wasn't quite sure what she meant, but he said, "I'm happy to hear that." Every day he brought drinks for the girls, and they shared stories about their camp days while he unloaded the truck. On Wednesday, he texted Morales, "Have you made any changes yet?" She replied with an upset emoji. "I told her that until he goes, I won't be there. She hasn't called me, so I haven't returned." He responded, "Wow, she's really cutting ties. She knows what she's doing. I'm not sure if it's the fame or the money, but she's not seeing things clearly right now. One day she'll regret it." "I'm sorry, Morales. I wish I could have done more." "What? No special visitor today? I don't want to make your friend feel bad. Let me worry about that. I care about you, Hank. You're a good son. Give my grandkids a hug from me." "I will." That night, he planned to call his children to remind them that they are loved. On Friday afternoon, he got an unexpected text from Kat. "I'm staying in Spain for another week to finish some things and spend time with my mother. After that, I have meetings in New York, then I'll come home. The show hasn't been the same without you." Hank rolled his eyes at that. It's clear it hasn't. The next message surprised him more. "I want us to work on our marriage when I return." "I'd like that too. Say hi to my friend for me." "I will." An hour later, Scott called. Hank picked up and said, "How did everything go?" "The filming went well. The episodes will look great, but they're going to raise a lot of questions." "In what way?" Tina joined in. "Hey, Hank, sorry to bring this up again, but it's pretty bad. Kat's boyfriend, Lorenzo, was in several episodes again this week. They filmed some in Spanish and Catalan for Spanish networks. They were acting very flirtatious, so anyone who knows she's married will be curious. She still has her rings on." Hank shook his head. Tina continued, "It gets worse. She and her boyfriend have a plan for a week together on his yacht in Ibiza. With all the paparazzi around, I don't know how they'll keep that quiet unless they stay on the yacht. Maybe they will, or maybe she just doesn't care. If you look at his social media, you'll see he's famous enough that people notice him when he's out. He even has a fiancée who isn't happy about him spending time with Kat. I know this sounds really bad, but we had to let you know. Oh, and once we get paid, we're quitting. We're finished." Wow, I guess that's it. I kept hoping she would return. but it was just a wishful thought. Thanks for informing me. Now I know what I have to do. And that is, serve her the divorce papers as soon as she gets back. Tina asked. Why wait? How can I find her off the coast of Ibiza? Even if I knew where she was, how could I serve her there? Would it even be legal? Scott replied, Hank, if you are serious, we can make this happen. You know we can get it done if we focus on it. All you need to do is have your lawyer email us the papers. Even if it isn't done in the U.S., she'll get the message on the boat. Hank laughed softly. Okay, I'll have him send it to you so you can print it and deliver it. Just let me know what it costs, and I'll pay you back. Oh, and I'll look for jobs for you here. Thanks, Hank. We feel hurt by all of this, too. I know it isn't the same as being married, but she's losing respect for everyone from her past. She might as well move to New York or Barcelona because this isn't going to end well for her. I can't believe she doesn't see that. You won't hear any disagreement from me. Let me know how it goes. Scott said, We'll keep you updated. Thank you, both of you. You're like family to me. You are too, replied Tina. When Hank ended the call, he felt both sad and relieved. It was over. She wanted to leave badly enough so he would let her go. She could stay in Pittsburgh or move to New York or Spain. He didn't care anymore. Not after everything that happened in the last year. He had his lawyer adjust the division of assets a bit since he planned to help Scott and Tina. Then he asked him to email the updated document to Scott. He honestly didn't know what to do. He felt so empty. Maybe he would just go home for now. He wouldn't be good company for anyone. Fortunately, he had finished unloading the truck earlier. Usually he would help pack bags for the food bank customers, but they would have to manage without him today. Maybe he could catch up on it over the weekend. When he entered Morgan's office, the girls were focused on their devices. He smiled at them and asked to speak with Morgan outside for a moment. He told her that his marriage was over, and he needed to go home. She understood. She asked, Home meaning here or Pittsburgh? He replied, This is home now. She hugged him again and told him to let her know how she could help. After getting home, he lay down on the couch and fell asleep. Whether it was the news from earlier or the fact that the difficult times of the last year and a half were finally over, he felt worn out. Later, he made something to eat, which he could hardly taste, and watched the Braves game. No need to check on the Pirates since they were going to lose anyway. If there had been any ice cream in the house, he would have eaten it all. He enjoyed a big bowl of popcorn and a few beers. Around 10 p.m., he got a text from Morgan. Can I stop by around 11 p.m.? I just want to check on you. He thought, why not? And replied, sure, see you then. He must have dozed off because a knock on the door woke him up. Expecting it to be Morgan, he opened the door and was surprised to see Julia in her chef uniform. As soon as he opened the door, she hugged him. Aunt Morgan is in the car, she said. She called me, and I left work early to check on you. Are you okay? I will be. It's strange, though. Nothing has really changed since yesterday, but I feel lost. It's a weird feeling. That makes sense. The foundation you've had for so many years is gone. It's natural to feel odd. When my husband passed away, I wasn't happy with him at that time. Yet I felt a huge sense of loss when it happened. Keep yourself busy. Things will improve. Easier said than done. I don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel much at all. She took a moment to think and then replied, Please don't make any plans for tomorrow. Ha! I can promise you that. Great. I'll call you in the morning to check on you. Okay? Okay. She gave him a peck on the cheek and said, You know your family cares about you, right? I do. Thank you, Julia. It means a lot that you stopped by. She smiled and said, Talk to you tomorrow. The next morning he still felt a bit hazy, so he made some coffee and sat outside while drinking it. At 8 a.m. the doorbell rang. He sighed. What now? When he opened the door, the girls rushed in to hug him. Julia stood behind them smiling and holding a box of donuts. Amber said, Mom said you needed some cheering up, so we came over. We have a whole day planned. He looked at Julia, who was still smiling, knowing he wouldn't say no to the girls. Come on in, he told them. Lead the way. And they did. They went for a hike in the morning, and when they got back, Morgan and Bill came with lunch. Later in the afternoon, they went swimming. followed by mini-golf in the evening. Sunday was similar, with the girls arriving early and filling his day with fun activities. That night, they watched a Pixar movie together, with a girl on each side of him. As the girls got ready to leave, he thanked everyone. Julia was the last to go and gave him a warm kiss on the cheek. "Thank you, Julia. Words can't fully express how grateful I am for everything you all did this weekend." He picked her up and spun her around, saying, "This is my best for now." Once she was back on her feet, she kissed him on the cheek, and then they left. A young boy and a slightly older girl, along with a middle-aged man, were smiling as Julia got into their SUV. Early on Monday morning, his phone rang. He saw it was Kat, but chose not to answer. He also noticed a message from Scott. "She's been served. Also, I didn't take the photos that are circulating." Hank wondered about the photos. Another text, this time from Kat. "Call me. It's not what it seems." He thought, it never is with her. Kat tried calling again, but he didn't pick up. Then he received another text from Kat. "I didn't cheat on him." This was getting interesting. Instead of calling her, he got up, made some coffee, and texted Scott. "I'm all ears." His phone rang right away. When Hank answered, he said, "I'm getting strange texts from Kat. Can you tell me what's happening before I call her?" "You can thank Tina for letting you sleep in. I wanted to serve her earlier, but Tina reminded me of the time difference. She didn't want Kat waking you at 3 a.m. "Okay, what happened?" "We had a simple plan. Last week, while Kat was filming, Tina, who had access to Kat's phone for work, put a tracking app on her iPhone because we had our doubts. It was an app that Kat wouldn't realize to turn off. We flew to Ibiza, which is a lovely place you should visit. Using that app, it was easy to find his boat, anchored just off the marina, and keep an eye on them. We found a lawyer to arrange for her to be served, but no one could do it over the weekend. Serving papers is a little different in another country. It's more like officially handing them over. This is a small island near Spain, so we had to wait until today. The lawyer set up for a constable and a small Coast Guard boat to deliver the papers just after noon, our time. Here's the twist. As the Coast Guard boat moved out, a bunch of other small boats followed at a distance. With our binoculars, we watched the Coast Guard boat reach their location. When it did, they both stood up. He was in a snug swimsuit, and she wasn't fully dressed. They hadn't been on land since arriving. They seemed to spend all their time on the boat. She was only uncovered for about 10 or 15 seconds before she put something on, and then the officer climbed aboard. After she was served, she ran back inside and below deck. We are still watching, but we have not seen her since. Tina jumped in. "Now for the rest of the story." Hank shook his head, wondering what he would hear next. "We suspected that the boats following the Coast Guard were paparazzi. They were probably tipped off about Lorenzo being with someone else on his yacht. When he and Kat stood up, those cameras must have taken a lot of pictures. Soon, news sites like El País, La Vanguardia, TMZ, Access Hollywood, E! Online, and The Sun all had images of Kat and Lorenzo on their pages, mentioning their names. Some of those pictures were very clear." "Oh no, this just keeps getting worse. I need to call the kids and give them a warning," Hank said with a sigh. Tina replied, "I'm really sorry, Hank. We promise we didn't tell anyone anything. The only person we talked to on the island was the lawyer who helped us serve her." Hank responded, "Don't worry about it. If she weren't on his yacht, this wouldn't be a problem, would it? I bet the lawyer made a few calls for a fee. He probably told them to follow the constable to avoid alerting them too soon. Well, now I know what I'm dealing with. I feel bad for the kids and Morellis, though. Kat always wanted to be famous. Now she got her wish," he added sadly. "We're sorry too, but yes, she did. By the way, the paparazzi are still around the yacht. Let them handle the situation from now on. I'm curious to see how this will affect Lorenzo's fiancée," Tina said. Hank said, "Thanks for everything, both of you. Why don't you two stay a few days? My treat. Then you can fly home or come here." "Sounds good. Thanks, Hank. Call us if you need anything," Tina replied. "Will do." Hank took a moment to check some of the pictures that were already online. Tina was right. Many of those images were clear and quite striking. There was no doubt it was her, and he felt a mix of feelings looking at the photos. He wondered how long it would take her to come home. He scoffed, realizing he didn't even care. He barely knew her anymore. She was not the same person she used to be. Before calling the kids, he decided to send her one last text. Say hi to your mom for me. Oh wait, when did she change so much? Sign the papers, Kat. Don't call. Don't text. Don't come. I'm blocking your number. Right now. Then he blocked her number. He called Ava and Eric to tell them what happened. From Lorenzo showing up to Kat being served and the photos coming out. They felt embarrassed. Eric thought he would be fine in college, as most people didn't know he was Catalina's son. Ava was thinking about taking a few days off work since everyone there knew her mother was Catalina. She was anxious about being seen at work. He worried about what would happen next. Morellis didn't deserve this. He sent Kat's message about her visit with Morellis to her, then waited a few minutes before calling. When Morellis answered, she said, "Hey, Hank, I saw your text. She hasn't been here, so I guess that's why you called." "Hey, Morellis. Yes, this isn't just a casual call. I sent you a link. You need to open it." "Oh?" He waited while she looked. Then he heard her say, "Oh no." He had sent her a link to a news website showing Catalina next to Lorenzo, looking surprised. "That's right. She told me she was finishing some things in Spain before visiting you. Then I found out she was spending time with her boyfriend on his yacht. I had to take action. I'm sorry this causes you trouble, but I thought it was better for you to hear it from me than through someone else." "Thank you. I appreciate that. I wish I had raised her better. Are you going to be okay?" "Yeah. And you did a good job. I think her New York team has influenced her. She stepped away from her family and let someone else affect her choices. This isn't on us. It's on her." She asked, "Have you told Ava and Eric?" "Just a few minutes ago. Ava's anxious about going to work. She was planning to come here for Labor Day anyway. I think I can convince her to come a few days earlier." "I hope you can. I'll get a ticket as soon as I can, if that's okay with you." "I meant it when I said you are always welcome. Come as soon as you can, and stay as long as you want." "Thank you, my son. I'll let you know when I have my ticket. I love you." "Love you too, Mom." After finishing what he needed to do that morning, he got ready and left for work. Knowing this situation was coming and feeling comforted all weekend, he was actually in a good mood and got a lot done. When he arrived at the food bank that afternoon, he brought Morgan a large bunch of flowers and another for Julia as a thank you for last weekend. He quietly told Morgan, so the girls couldn't hear, what had happened that morning. She was sympathetic and said to let her know how she could help. He worked until the food bank closed that night at 7 p.m., which was not something he usually did. He watched as many familiar faces picked up bags of selected food and felt grateful for his situation, which could have been much worse. He thought about the pain Kat had caused him and others and wanted to help his family and friends. He wondered if he could assist them and support the food bank at the same time. That night, he spent a lot of time thinking about it. On Tuesday, he called Scott and Tina, asking them to skip Pittsburgh and head straight to Asheville. He had something that might interest them. Eva had a hard week. She called him from her car on Wednesday morning, nearly in tears. After taking a break on Monday and Tuesday, she returned to find a color printout of her mother's picture on her desk. Someone wrote a rude comment at the bottom. After listening to her, he said, "Here's what you should do. Take that picture and bring it to your HR manager. Tell them you want to find the person responsible and that you are thinking about reporting it. Let them know you have someone to help with this, probably a lawyer. Then say you won't come back to work until they fix this. Finally, pack a few bags and come here. You may want to fly, but driving might be better because I hope you'll stay for a while." "Okay, Dad. I'll leave in the morning and be there by tomorrow afternoon." "Why not call Eric and come together? I'll fly him back." "Sounds good." It was after midnight when Ava and Eric arrived. The next morning, Ava walked into the kitchen and exclaimed, "Nana!" She rushed to hug her grandmother, whom she hadn't seen in almost a year. Morellis had come the day before, and Hank hadn't told his kids she was arriving, hoping to surprise them. Tina and Scott arrived late Friday, and Hank had a full house for the Labor Day weekend. On Saturday, he shared his ideas for helping Scott and Tina find work again and how he hoped Eva could be involved. They would need a big help from Julia, who was curious and willing. Morellis, Morgan, and the girls were all in too. Tina and Scott were cautiously hopeful as well. They spent Saturday and Sunday brainstorming various suggestions and plans. Hank and Julia needed to talk to the owners of her restaurant soon, probably within the next week. On Monday, Labor Day, just before lunch, the adults were discussing more ideas in the large kitchen, while Morellis entertained the girls when they heard the front door open. To their surprise, Kat walked in. No one, not even Morellis, stood up to welcome her. The quiet was overwhelming. Amber and Bella just watched the person they considered famous, confused about what was wrong. Hank asked, "What are you doing here?" Kat answered, "It's Labor Day, and I wanted to be with my family. You all gathered here without telling me." "Oh, so you have a family now?" Before Kat could respond, Julia called the girls to come outside. Hank asked, "Where are you going?" Julia replied, "It seems you need to talk with your family." "Exactly, so where are you going?" Morgan and Julia understood that hint, but Julia still said, "The girls aren't quite old enough for your talk, but thanks for including us." Hank nodded, and Julia led the girls outside. Morgan and Bill stayed behind. Kat placed her hands on her hips dramatically. "What was that about? Have you replaced me already?" "I could ask you the same thing." "I didn't do anything wrong." She said it as if she didn't care. "Once again, you don't see how your actions impact others. Even if you didn't do anything wrong, only you and your boyfriend know the truth. Nobody else believes you." "You can't mean that." So far, everyone was watching them back and forth like it was a game. Hank asked, "Mom, what do you think? Did Kat do something wrong with her boyfriend?" "Hank, please don't make me say—" Kat was shocked to hear her mother. "Okay, how about this? Before you flew here, did any of your friends doubt that she had done something with him?" Morellis shook her head, no. Hank said, "Okay, everyone, raise your hand if you think Kat did not do anything with her boyfriend." No one raised their hand. Kat felt hurt that her kids didn't support her. She sighed. "He's not my boyfriend, but he's going to be my business partner. He is retiring from soccer, and we are planning to fix up several of his family's villas together. I was with him to plan." "Really? Hank," Morellis begged. Hank looked at Morellis and sighed. "Fine." He turned back to Kat and asked, "Why are you here?" "Because my family is here, and I told you I wanted to work on our marriage." "Then why did you tell me one thing in a text about visiting your mom while saying in another message that you want to work on our marriage? If one is a lie, it makes me think the other is too." "I knew you would be upset about my spending time with him." "Nothing happened. We were just planning which villas to work on first." "I'm sure you were. In a way that isn't appropriate. The pictures online showed a lot." "I'm sorry those pictures got out. But if you hadn't served me those papers, the paparazzi wouldn't have taken them." In Spain, being topless at the beach is quite normal. Before the kids were born, I often went without a top with you, and you seemed okay with it. "That's true, but who did you spend the night with afterwards?" "I didn't spend the night with anyone." Hank frowned and asked, "If your family and your marriage are important, why did it take you a week to come here?" "I was working on problems with our new business partner. After that, I had to go to New York to meet with some executives and then to Pittsburgh to see sponsors." She didn't share that one executive in New York had directly asked her if the yacht pictures were planned. Given who he was, she chose not to argue, and he didn't seem to care. Hank replied sarcastically, "Let me guess. You needed to explain yourself to your sponsors in Pittsburgh because they might not like how you were handling things with your new partner while your husband was still in the States." He was right. Catalina felt cornered, so she decided to push back. "I can't believe you all are so quick to turn against me. Don't I deserve a little trust?" Scott interjected. "Don't go there, Kat. Your actions lately have made that trust hard to maintain." "Thanks for that, Scott. Now you both are fired. I was just acting. You know it wasn't real." Tina said, "Kat, we just want everything to run smoothly for the show. We were thinking of leaving before you brought in a new crew from New York." Catalina was surprised that everyone seemed to know so much about her decisions behind the scenes. Then Morellis said, "Well, daughter, you're quite the actress. While we were filming, you made it seem like your interest in him was more than just business. Your audience, who knows you're still married, might think the same." That took her aback. "Why are you all against me?" Ava replied. "We aren't against you, Mom. but it's hard to understand why you would suddenly show up after so long and expect us to welcome you back without question. Honestly, strangers have hurt us less than your absence. You haven't been a part of this family for a long time, and you don't see how your public choices affect us. What are you talking about? Catalina asked. Ava continued. For years, it's always been about you. You weren't there for anything since my senior year when I wanted to do things with you and my friends. Nana helped me pick out my senior prom dress because you were too busy. I can name many times in the last few years when you weren't there for me. Ava's frustration was clear as she recalled a recent memory. Then this week, someone at work put a picture of you on my desk. It wasn't just any picture. It showed you without a top on. Now people think less of me because of you. I struggle enough to get taken seriously with my appearance, but now they'll just look at me and compare me to you. Thanks to you, who knows how far I've been set back in my career. Tears started to fill Eva's eyes as she spoke. Kat didn't expect this reaction. She thought she would have to smooth things over with Hank, but she hadn't considered how others might feel. She tried to change her approach. But sweetie, I was trying to help us all. The money I earn lets us do so much. Don't worry about your career. You can come work for me. Eva's face showed clear disappointment. She made it known that she had no interest in that offer. Mom, do you have any idea who called me on Friday? That newspaper in the UK that published your photos wanted to see if I would be interested in doing a mother-daughter photo shoot. Just great. I can only imagine what else is going to come my way. Kat felt embarrassed by that. Hank wasn't sure if it was true, but he chose not to ask at that time. Eric chimed in. Wow, Mom, if you just wanted to be famous, why didn't you and that guy make a video instead? You could have gotten attention a lot faster like some other stars. That hit Kat hard. She couldn't believe her kids were speaking to her like this. Tears fell freely now. Morellis sensed the tension and decided to step in. Catalina, can we talk for a moment? Morellis walked by Hank, giving his arm a reassuring squeeze. She then guided Kat out of the room. After a few minutes, Morellis returned, her face wet with tears, and went straight to Hank for comfort. Are you all right, Mom? He asked softly. I will be. I just told my daughter that she needs to leave before we say things we can't take back. I'm afraid we might have already crossed that line. I suggested we spend tomorrow together, but I'm staying here tonight since Eric is leaving in the morning, and I may not see him for a long time. I haven't heard her car start, so she might still be out there upset. I think she's finally understanding what her actions have caused. She added, Please do me a favor, Hank. Be kind to her. Stay away from any arguments. Look out for the kids and for yourself. But please be nice to her. I know she hasn't been great to us, but I'm asking you as a favor. Please show kindness to my daughter. He hugged her back. Of course, Mom. I promise I will try. Morgan went outside and told Julia they could come back in. When the girls entered, they hugged Hank. Julia thought he needed a boost. Hank whispered to the girls, and soon they were hugging Morellis. Julia's look at Hank showed him that it was a good idea and that it was appreciated. It was a hard night for everyone. Because it was Labor Day weekend, it took Kat a while, but she eventually found an okay hotel room about 20 minutes away. She cried until she checked into her hotel. Then she opened her laptop and got to work. If her family didn't want her anymore, she would show them. She would still be successful. The next morning, Hank, Eva, and Morellis drove Eric to the airport. Morellis was already missing her grandson, whom she hadn't seen for nearly a year before this trip. Before he said goodbye, he told her, Nana, just stay here with us. When I graduate next year, I'll move close by, and then you can be with us all the time. But Barcelona is my home. I've lived there my whole life. I know it's a tough choice, but it's one we hope you'll think about. I will think about it for my grandkids. They hugged, and Eric went through security. Hank and Eva then took Morellis to Kat's hotel. A minute after dropping her off, Eva's phone rang. It turned out Kat had already checked out. A few hours later, Morellis would find out that Kat had taken an early flight back to New York. Things moved quickly after that. Hank, Morgan, and Julia shared their idea with the restaurant owners to hold a charity event on one of their quieter nights before Thanksgiving to help the local food bank. Eva, Tina, and Scott's new marketing firm would promote the event. While the restaurant was already popular, this would help spread the word even more. Scott offered to cover the food costs so that all money raised would go to the food bank. The owners agreed to host the event, and everyone started making plans. Hank wanted to accomplish many things at once. He wanted the support and ideas from everyone who had been at his house on Labor Day. First, he aimed to personally fund some projects for Scott and Tina in the Asheville area. Besides the restaurant event, he planned for Scott and Tina to conduct in-depth interviews with people involved in the food bank, including Morgan and families who used its services. Several commercials would be created for the cause as well. Hank offered to pay the college fees for the families Morgan chose to be in the food bank videos if they wanted to participate. Before addressing some issues with Kat, Hank had his lawyer adjust their divorce agreement so that he would receive a bit more. Still, the new arrangement favored Kat overall. When Ava had problems at her job, Hank felt that this could lead to something good for him. While he was sorry she was struggling, he saw an opportunity for them both. He wanted Eva to stay in Asheville close to him and hoped she would be interested. He encouraged Eva, Scott, and Tina to start their own marketing business. He promised to help with the starting costs, including the first year's salaries, so they could focus on what they did best. Scott and Tina could still create professional videos and work with Ava to offer their services to clients she would bring in or assist with marketing clients they found together. Everyone was excited about the idea, though they felt nervous, except for Tina. She saw this as a chance for her and Scott to have a family, with less traveling than before. Julia felt hesitant about Hank's plans because he needed her skills. He wanted her to create 2 cookbooks, something she had never done. Hank had worked on several before, and so had Scott and Tina. With their support, she agreed to give it a shot. She said, "Hank, does the world really need another cookbook?" Instead of debating that point, he focused on convincing her that it was for a good cause and that they had the right team to make it work. The first book was meant to support the food bank. Hank wanted to name it Got Gravy, as a fun twist on a famous ad. The cover would feature a cropped picture of a person's face just below their eyes, with a gravy mustache instead of a milk mustache. Though it echoed a well-known advertisement, the purpose was noble. The cookbook would not only feature gravy recipes, as there weren't many of them, but include a variety of gravies and sauces for different uses. The marketing of this cookbook would be the new company's first project. Once the list of recipes was set, Tina and Scott planned and recorded the entire production. Julia's dishes were arranged beautifully, and they took lots of pictures. Helpful videos were added to the food bank website. By the time of the food bank benefit in Malta, they were ready to promote the book with the launch date coming soon. Hank requested a second cookbook focused on Mediterranean recipes based on what Julia made at Malta. He wanted his marketing company to help promote this book too. Instead of putting videos on the food bank website, Hank created a special site just for Julia. There were many similar sites, but Hank believed Julia would have something unique to offer with professional resources. A couple of weeks before Thanksgiving was the night of the fundraiser at the restaurant. Hank had Scott film Julia while she cooked and talk about how she helped the executive chef with new menu items, finding suppliers, and making sure everything was high quality. The owners watched most of this and were happy to hear what Julia said. They knew her well and recognized her talent. 2 local TV stations were there too, capturing moments during the event and conducting interviews with Morgan, the restaurant owners, and Julia for broadcast that night and the next day. It turned out to be a wonderful evening. After the event, the girls were excited to see their mother on camera. They had helped her in some of her cookbook videos, which turned out very cute. Morales was around and appeared in several videos as well. During this time, the girls were becoming closer to Hank. He was still working at the local factory and made occasional trips back to Pittsburgh. With summer over, he was spending full days at the factory and helping with the cookbooks in the evenings. Morgan and Bill were often with the girls, and they all got along nicely with Morales, who enjoyed their company. She hoped to have 2 new grandchildren someday, but that was still a bit away, even after Kat signed the divorce papers a month later. On Sunday night after Thanksgiving, which was a rare night off for Julia, she and Hank sat on his outdoor couch, enjoying the view of his backyard while sipping some wine after a long evening of putting the finishing touches on the gravy cookbook. Julia asked, "Hank, can I ask you a serious question?" He smiled and replied, "Always." She liked that answer and smiled back. though she wasn't sure if it would last. She asked, "I really appreciate everything you're doing for the food bank. Aunt Morgan, Eva, Tina, and Scott. Wow, that's a long list. But why are you focusing on me like this? I get the first cookbook, but the videos during the event and the second cookbook are a bit confusing to me. Are you trying to make me be like Catalina? Because I don't want that, and I think you know that. So, what's going on?" He had hoped to discuss this later, but he couldn't put it off any longer. "You trust me with your girls, don't you?" "Of course I do." "Do you believe that I only want what's best for them?" "I do. And aside from the summer camps, you've included me in those ideas. Julia, I just want to support you and make sure Amber and Bella are happy. The best way to do that is by helping you have more options." She looked puzzled and said, "More options? I don't get it." "Even if you stop now, we could still publish the Gravy Cookbook, and I think it would be successful. But with your work on the food bank fundraiser, Scott's video, and the TV station's coverage, you're about to become more recognized in this community. Instead of just being the second chef at one of Asheville's restaurants, people will actually know who you are. That opens up possibilities for you. If you want to keep working at Malta, you can. The owners appreciate the attention you've brought them. But with your education and experience along with a bit more visibility, other businesses in Western North Carolina might want someone skilled and graceful like you on their team. You could work as a specialty food buyer for a restaurant group or hospitality business. Some local restaurants are getting recognized and would benefit from a good publicist. Places like Biltmore need directors for food operations, and you could even teach at the community college. There are lots of opportunities for someone with your talents. This means that one day, if you want, you could have a job while the girls are in school, and then spend more time with the two people who think you're the best person in the world. I agree with them. You really are something special." "So you're doing this for them?" "I am. This isn't about wanting to see me famous like Catalina, is it?" "No, not at all. It's just for the girls. And for you." She took a moment to let that sink in. Hank was already busy with a full schedule. She knew that once summer ended, he would return to long workdays at his job and spend evenings helping out with various projects, like food banks or cookbooks. Yet even with all that, he was thinking of her girls, and by extension, her. She recalled their conversation from a few months ago when she considered what it meant for him to be unmarried. She snuggled closer and teased, "You're not trying to reach me through the girls, are you?" While he might enjoy the idea of trying to connect with her, he held his tongue. "Nope. As tempting as that sounds, I won't use them as a way to get to you." She thought, "Good answer." Then she asked, "What if I were interested in you reaching out to me in another way?" "Then I would definitely like that." Julia stood in front of Hank and handed him her glass of wine. "Hold this," she said, and he took the glass, now confused with two nearly empty glasses in his hands. Julia sat on his lap. With his hands occupied, he could only enjoy the moment as she kissed him softly, her hands exploring from his waist to his head. Hank didn't pull away. Instead, he kissed her back, savoring the connection. After a moment, she pulled back and smiled. "You have no idea how long I've wanted to do that." "Oh, really?" You know my daughters adore you, right?" "I do hope so because I care for them, too. From the first time Bella held your hand on our hike, I was intrigued, but a little scared, too. I didn't want to consider a married man. But when they snuggled next to you during that Pixar movie, I felt a wave of envy. It almost brought tears to my eyes. That's when I began to think about what Aunt Morgan has been nudging me towards since early summer." This time it was Hank who leaned in for a kiss. As she kissed him back, he gently set the wine glasses down on the grass, freeing his hands. He could sense her smile as he wrapped one arm around her waist. After breaking the kiss, she said, "You have a free bedroom. Why don't the girls and I sleep over tonight?" "I like the way you think. Are you going to tell them you're sleeping in my bedroom?" "Nope. You are sleeping on the couch. At least that's what we'll say for now." "Are you okay with our other guests knowing?" he asked. "I'm fine with it, but they're not children." "Fine? Our guests are the ones who have been supporting me, even Eva." His response brought a smile to her face. "We have a wonderful family." She kissed him and added, "Yes, a great one." When they returned inside, the girls were focused on their homework, and everyone else seemed busy with their own tasks. The TV wasn't on. When Julia told the girls they would be spending the night, their faces lit up with joy. After talking to Julia, Morgan turned to Bill and celebrated with a high five. All their guests tried to act like everything was normal, but they too felt happy to see Hank and Julia together. After settling the girls into bed, they asked if Hank could come in to say goodnight. Julia felt a bit anxious, but was determined to see if she and Hank could really build a life together. Seeing her girls smile as he kissed them goodnight made her heart flutter. When they felt it was safe to go to his bedroom, Julia said, "You lock the door, and I'll set the alarm." They enjoyed a wonderful night together, lacking in sleep, but filled with warmth. The little sleep they did manage, they spent next to each other. At 5:30 a.m., the alarm rang, and Hank moved to the couch, where Ava was waiting for him. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I'm just making sure that someone, either me, you, or Nana, is on the couch in case the girls wake up early." He smiled at his daughter. That was his girl. "Are you okay with me and Julia being together?" he asked. "Yes, Dad, I really am. It might sound strange, but even if I could go back and change how Mom abandoned us emotionally, I wonder how far back I would have to go. 5 years? 8? 10? It's hard to say, but it feels like a long time. I just don't understand why we weren't enough for her. It hurt all of us. Then when I think about how happy Amber and Bella are, and even Nana, I wonder, even if I could travel through time with all I know, I don't think I would change anything. I've really enjoyed these past months. I don't like how things turned out, but I wouldn't trade our time together for anything. I feel sad for you and Mom, and to some extent for Nana, but I truly believe we'll be okay. I hope things work out with you and Julia. Everyone does." "Thanks, sweetheart. That means a lot to me." Since they were up, they headed to the kitchen to make breakfast, knowing the girls would need to get up soon to prepare for school. The smells and sounds from the kitchen began to wake everyone in the house. Morales was the first to step into the kitchen, followed by Julia. Julia walked up to Hank and gave him a warm hug and a gentle kiss on the neck. Although she did not mean for it to happen, the moment was perfectly timed for Amber to see. Amber smiled and quickly walked over to Hank, giving him a long hug and a kiss on the cheek. Then she did the same for her mom. Seeing Amber happy, Julia felt reassured, and Morales thought the same. After Julia and the girls left, Morales said, "Hank, I'm going back to Spain. I'm not sure how long I will be there, maybe a few days or weeks, but I will come back. I need to check on my daughter. She has been busy there, and I need to make some choices about my home and things. I haven't been happy with her actions in the last couple of years, especially last summer, but she is still my daughter. I hope you get that. Mom, there is nothing to understand. You do what you need to do. I want you to know you always have a place here. Just promise me you won't be gone too long. We will all miss you, including your new granddaughters. And I will miss them too. When Kat was little, I felt like a protective mom with just one chick to care for. Now I still feel like that, but my family has grown to include you as well. I love my first child, but I care for all of my children just as much. You don't have kids yet, so maybe you don't see it, but I need to do this." "I think I understand a bit." "Oh, just so you know, Mom, the guest room you've been using, it's yours. This house is yours. Don't worry about living anywhere else, okay? We want you here." "I know, and thank you. I want to be here too. When Samuel was alive, I didn't mind the distance between our families so much. I missed all of you, but I had him. I wish I'd moved closer years ago, but at that time, Catalina was so busy that I didn't want to disturb her. I see now that was a mistake. I don't want to miss watching these grandkids grow up. I'll be back soon, either before or right after Christmas." Morales went back to Spain and tried to spend time with Kat, who was very busy working on her new show with Lorenzo. Things were going well, but Kat didn't have much time for her mother. Morales never took a liking to Lorenzo, but she was polite because she knew her daughter needed this show to succeed. It was important because while Kat's previous show had been a big hit, her old sponsors were not interested in renewing her program, so she needed her new show to do well. Kat was surprised to hear that her mother planned to sell her apartment. Morellis would get a good price and have enough money saved so that if she ever wanted to visit her hometown, she could rent a nice place for a while. Morellis planned to save enough money to be laid to rest in Spain, next to Samuel, but she wanted to live in the United States with her family. The immigration process would take time, but she was sure it would happen. Kat asked, "Why didn't you move there while I was in Pittsburgh?" "It took me a while to get over your father's passing 5 years ago. Besides, in recent years, we wouldn't have spent much time together anyway, right?" Kat felt frustrated, not because it wasn't true, but because it was. "But now I'm here and you're moving away. If you stayed, we could spend time together." "Dear, I love you, I truly do. But I could stay here and see you just a few hours a week, or I could live there and be with my family every day. I haven't had breakfast or dinner alone in months. I can't go back to being without them when I can be with them all the time." "But I'm your family too." "You are part of my family, but they are around more often right now. When you have more time, let me know, and I will visit you." "That might not be for 7 or 8 months. Exactly why I'm returning to Asheville until your schedule is more open." Morellis realized that 7 or 8 months could easily turn into much longer. She then asked Kat, "Do you have time off for Christmas?" "Lorenzo and I are hosting a Christmas show, and we have to attend a children's hospital event on Christmas Eve." Morellis nodded. She could stay and spend a Christmas afternoon with an occupied Catalina, or she could enjoy a wonderful week with her family in Asheville, who would be on vacation the week before Christmas, plus another week after. The choice was clear. When Morellis returned, she brought several boxes of her favorite things. When Hank saw them, he knew what to do. She had a small case of ornaments, and Hank got them out for Amber and Bella to help Morellis decorate the tree. Morellis was happy when they finished. On Christmas Day, Julia and the girls started their morning at Morgan and Bill's, but then they all went to Hank's for a big lunch and to open presents. Before they went back to Morgan's house, Hank told Julia, "I hope that next year you and the girls will wake up here." "I would like that," she replied. For the girls, it was starting to feel more like home. While Kat had distanced herself from her family, she also lost support from her sponsors in the Pittsburgh area. It would have been a waste of time to try to rebuild old relationships, and instead, she decided to go where the money was easily accessible, which was Lorenzo and his villa projects. This meant moving away from her Pittsburgh base. They quickly gathered a team in Spain and began filming with a Spanish audience in mind. Lorenzo was already well known in Spain from his soccer career and became very popular next to Catalina, who was returning to her home country. They had great chemistry on screen, and their show quickly grew from just a few episodes to a small production company that worked on episodes for NBC Universal in Spain. The show did so well that NBC Universal wanted them to appear in and produce several other shows across various Spanish networks, including Telemundo in America and other parts of Latin America. They even asked Kat to host a cooking show where she could work with many talented chefs in Spain's top restaurants. While she enjoyed her time with Lorenzo and the success of that show, cooking with those amazing chefs was her favorite part. So, not only did Kat get her own show, but she also secured several others, earning as much as she would have from a top-rated show in the United States for a while. Despite their great on-screen chemistry, Kat and Lorenzo were not meant to be a couple. He wanted a family, and at nearly 50, Kat was not ready for that. His ex-fiancée had caused trouble by destroying his home when she saw the pictures of him with Kat. Her father was the governor of the area, which helped limit the consequences for her actions. But Lorenzo was looking for a future, so he married a lovely woman who could provide what he wanted. This changed the dynamic of their shows together, as the chemistry faded quickly after Lorenzo signed a strict prenuptial agreement. As a result, their show lost its spark, which pushed Kat to create new projects. Instead of easy-to-produce shows along the Spanish coast, she started making cooking and travel shows in countries where she had grown popular. The contracts were still very profitable, but the travel became exhausting. Eventually, she moved to Miami, the vibrant capital of Latin America, where she was seen as a celebrity. By then, she hoped people would recognize her for her skills and experience. With her age, people began to see her as a mamacita. It was one thing to use her looks to advance her career, but keeping up with so many beautiful people in Miami was quite a challenge. With her curvy figure, it became harder for her to stand out among the younger crowd in Miami. She often worried about her weight, how youthful she looked, and getting older, even though she had no real reason to be concerned. After a couple of years, she had a good amount of money saved and many men who wanted to be close to her. But she felt very lonely, even when she shared her bed with someone. Every year, Ava and Eric would come to visit her for a week. Morales tried to stay for 2 or 3 weeks. With Kat's busy travel schedule, this was all they could manage. After moving to Miami, Kat spent a lot of time alone thinking about the past. During one of Morales' visits, she encouraged Kat to watch the early episodes of the show that made Hank look bad. They watched them together. Missing Hank and her family and seeing those old episodes differently made Kat cry by the time they finished the 3rd episode. She pushed herself to watch 3 more episodes before sending Hank a text, wanting to call him next to apologize. To her surprise, she found her number was still blocked, so she had to use Morales' phone instead. She texted Hank, "You were right. They made you look foolish. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you. Please forgive me." 10 minutes later, her phone chimed with his reply. "Apology accepted. Hope you are well. Safe travels." She told Morales, "Give him a hug for me, Mama. Tell him I love him and I'm sorry." "I will," Morales replied. During Ava's recent visit around Christmas, she brought Todd, her fiancé, so that her mother could meet him. Kat instantly liked him. Ava and Todd planned to get married in early June, which was almost 6 months away. That timing wouldn't allow Kat to help with the wedding plans. Ava offered, but they both knew it would be impossible. Kat graciously thanked her for the offer and said she wouldn't be much help. She promised to be in Asheville the week of the wedding. As the wedding got closer, Kat was in South America filming food and travel shows similar to the Anthony Bourdain series, but for Spanish-speaking audiences. Sadly, instead of visiting exciting cities, she was traveling to smaller towns to highlight places that needed to be discovered. It made her job much tougher. However, she did have a nice experience when she went to Mendoza, Argentina to film at a winery restaurant. She stayed at a nearby luxury ranch and met the owner, Matias. He was handsomely older than her and had the charm of a wealthy rancher who had lived a full life. They spent their first evenings sharing stories about their work and travels. Whenever she wasn't filming, she spent time with him and found a real connection for the first time since leaving Hank. They shared moments that felt meaningful. When it was time for her to go to Santiago, Chile, Matias flew her in his private plane over the beautiful Andes Mountains. The views were amazing. He invited her to come back and stay with him, which made her think seriously about it since she wanted to feel connected to someone in her life. 2 weeks before her wedding, she was in Colombia, deep in the jungle near the Amazon. She was set to film with an indigenous tribe for the season's ending. She was meant to show how they made meals using simple tools. Instead of a typical travel and cooking show, this felt more like a documentary. While joking with their guide about wildlife, she noticed he and several others were armed, just in case. The first 2 days of filming went well, but then the gentle rain turned into a heavy downpour. The local guide, who was taking her crew from their small village to the tribe's location, didn't show up. Each day the rain continued, and filming couldn't happen. She was supposed to leave the Saturday before the wedding, but they asked her to stay a bit longer to finish filming. She agreed, though she wasn't happy about it. The old hotel didn't have internet, but there was a small cafe nearby with slow service. There was no cell phone coverage by the Amazon. While at the cafe, she saw on the news that roads were starting to wash away because of the rain. She realized if this kept happening, she might miss her wedding. Even though it was late afternoon, she quickly found their driver and insisted he take her back to Bogota. She was determined to leave, no matter what. When their Colombian host tried to argue, she told him to do what he needed to. Soon, everyone in her crew decided to join her. The 11-hour drive through the heavy rain and muddy, rough roads to Bogota was the longest experience of her life. It felt like a scene from a disaster movie, and exhaustion helped her sleep for about an hour on the way back. Never again, she thought. I was much happier with my audience back home. Then she remembered sadly that she couldn't go back. She took a shower, rested for a couple of hours, and then left the hotel to head to the Bogota airport, where things got worse because the whole airport was on strike. She was meant to arrive in Asheville that afternoon, but now she had no idea when she would leave Bogota, let alone get there. Everyone she called, from the airline to her manager at NBC Universal, who couldn't believe she left a live shoot, seemed unable to help. She worried that being late might hurt her relationship with Eva, so she texted the one person she could always rely on. "Please, I need your help. It's urgent." Hank was surprised when he got the text. He knew Kat was supposed to arrive today. The girls had prepared many things for her that everyone hoped she would enjoy. "Hey, Kat, what's going on?" "Oh, thank you for calling me. I know you probably don't want to help." He cut her off. "Just tell me what you need, Kat." Feeling a bit put off by his tone, she continued, "I need help getting out of Bogota. Can your travel person connect me with whoever arranges your company's private jet? I need to go from a different airport. There is a general strike here and no flights are taking off." "Of course. Give me a few minutes." She dreaded the answer she might get. Medellin and Cali were 8 and 9 hours away by car on a good day. She desperately wanted something to go her way. She regretted accepting this last assignment and felt frustrated with her producer at NBC Universal for putting her in a tough spot just when her daughter was getting married. It was a reminder that she was seen as just a worker, not a person. After a bit of thought, she realized she should have been wiser about taking a job so close to the wedding. Why would she expect her employers to care about her time when she didn't? This was a wake-up call about her own priorities. She promised herself she wouldn't make that mistake again. 15 minutes later, her phone rang. It was Hank. "Take a cab to the Guaymaral airport, just north of town. A plane will be there in a couple of hours to take you to Miami. If you'd like, I can arrange another plane from Miami to Asheville, or you can find your own ticket. Oh, that airport is small, so don't worry when they drop you off. The jet service will start calling your cell in about an hour to guide you to the lounge while you wait for your plane." "Thank you, Hank. I'll pay you back as soon as I get to Asheville." "I know. No rush. Be safe and have a good flight. Everyone is excited to see you." "Me too." Besides exchanging a few texts a few years ago, she hadn't talked to Hank in 4 years. He was the love of her life, and yet they hadn't spoken in so long. Now he was helping her without hesitation. She wasn't going to dwell on her past choices during this upcoming week, but during those lonely nights over the years, she had often been hard on herself. To get everything she ever wanted, she had to let go of everyone she ever loved. It felt like a poor choice. How did she lose sight of the people who mattered? When did it happen? Why wasn't she fighting for them instead of staring at her own reflection? The flight back to her home in Miami was smooth. After where she had been the day before, she felt very thankful. The next morning, she took the first direct flight to Asheville, arriving just before lunch. She loved Asheville and missed it, but like her ex-husband, she had left it behind 4 years ago. When she sent Eva her new flight details, Eva replied that she would meet her at baggage claim. At the Asheville airport, after passing through security, Kat turned the corner toward the baggage carousel. Suddenly she heard, "Aunt Kat! Aunt Kat!" Turning around, she saw 2 teenage girls running toward her with their arms open for a hug. Morellis followed closely behind, smiling. Kat felt surprised to see them. Morellis had mentioned how close she had gotten to the girls. It seemed they didn't hold any hard feelings against her. After hugs were exchanged, Amber said, "Nana has been teaching us Spanish." Bella added, "We've been watching your travel shows to help." Morellis looked proud of them. "These 2 are probably your biggest fans. After me, of course." "Thank you, Mama, and thank you both," Kat replied, unsure who was who. She then asked, "Where's Eva?" "Getting your bags? Let's go." When Eva hugged her mother again, there were happy tears. "I've missed you, Mom." "Me too, sweetie. I've missed you too." Once they loaded Kat's bags into the SUV, it was time to catch up. During a moment of quiet, Bella asked, "Aunt Kat, are you coming with us to Spain next summer?" "You're going to Spain?" "Mm-hmm. Daddy and Nana said that after I turned 13 we could go. Nana's going to show us around. Aunt Morgan and Uncle Bill are coming too, so can you come?" Kat felt a little shocked to hear Bella call Hank Daddy. She knew he married Julia and adopted the girls, but it still surprised her to hear that from a child who wasn't hers. "Oh, I wish I could, sweetie, but your mom or dad would have to invite me first. I wouldn't want to make them uncomfortable." Marlis and Ava chuckled together. Ava added, "Todd and I would love to go, but we'll have to see how it works out." They drove to Malta for lunch. Kat asked, "Isn't this where Julia works?" Morellis replied, "Yep, she's still there." The girls just smiled. Once inside, they were seated at a large, round table where Morgan was waiting. A few minutes later, Julia and a well-dressed older woman walked over to the table. Julia said, "Hi, Kat. It's great to see you again." Thanks, Julia. I'm just glad this meeting is better than the last one," Kat replied. Julia smiled in response. Kat then asked, "Are you working today?" "Oh, I'm working, but I'm not in the kitchen anymore. Mrs. Rousseau and her husband now have 4 restaurants, and I'm their buyer for all of them. I made the change a little over 2 years ago. This way, I get to spend more time with my family since my hours are better. I still cook occasionally to help out, but that's not very often. Mrs. Rousseau wanted to ask you something." Renee Rousseau said, "Hi, Kat. It's nice to finally meet you. This fall marks the 5th year that one of our restaurants will host a fundraiser for the local food bank that Morgan runs. It would mean a lot to everyone at this table and in our company if you would be our guest chef for the evening. As you might know, it's for a good cause, and you could help us raise a lot of money for charity." "You want me? I'm not very well known in Spain, and even less so here in Asheville. I appreciate the offer, but are you sure I would be a good fit?" "We're sure. I've seen many of your shows where you were a guest chef at top restaurants, and of course your earlier success on PBS. We'd love to have you join us. We do this in October when the fall crowds are in town. You don't have to decide today, but I hope you'll think about it." Kat was taken aback. "Sure. I'll let you know soon. Thank you." "Actually, thank you," Renee replied. Julia took a seat with them at the table. Eva asked, "Mama, how long are you staying in Asheville?" "About a week, I think," Morellis said. "I was hoping you could stay a little longer." "While I'm enjoying my welcome, I don't want to overstay my welcome," Kat said. Julia replied, "Nonsense. Stay as long as you want." That made Kat feel very welcomed, almost like she was coming home. They enjoyed a lovely lunch, and afterwards Julia went back to her office while Morgan drove to the food bank. In the SUV, Eva said, "I want to show you my new office." They drove a few minutes from downtown to an older neighborhood where there was a large Victorian house on a big lot with a shed in the back. When they walked inside, Scott and Tina greeted them with a baby in Tina's arms. Kat's eyes widened when she saw the little boy. "Oh, Tina, Scott, I didn't know you had a baby. I'm so happy for you both," Tina replied. "Thank you, Kat. Once our business grew, I was able to spend more time at home. I'm really loving it. Nana comes over to help with Samuel sometimes, so I can work a bit more, but it's been wonderful." "Samuel, did Mama tell you that was my father's name?" Kat asked. Scott replied, "We know. Your mom has been such a big help to all of us that Tina and I decided to name him Samuel after her. If we had a girl, we would have named her Morellis." "Oh, I don't know how to respond to that, other than to say thank you. I'm sure Papa would have been very happy and Mama too." Morellis put her arm around Kat. "I'm very happy, more than I can say. It feels like getting another grandbaby. Sam is number 5. When Morellis picked up Sam, he squealed with glee. He always enjoyed when his Nana came to visit. Ava, Tina, and Scott showed Kat around. The big shed in the back was Scott's studio where he filmed small clips for special ads. Most of his work was done on location or at a professional studio in town. The business office was in the front room of their Victorian home. Ava usually worked there. Scott was slowly fixing up the old house. He wasn't in a rush and thought it would take him several more years to finish, maybe sooner if Hank kept helping. Scott said, "Kat, your daughter really got the business moving. We mostly worked for Hank for the first few months until our Got Gravy cookbook started selling. Ava had the great idea to send a few books to a local comedian near Atlanta and asked if he could mention the cookbook before a show or two, since it was for charity. He liked the cookbook a lot, or maybe he just liked the title and picture so much that he talked about it before each show that season. Suddenly, people wanted to know more about Julia, the food bank, and the company behind the cookbook. Julia's Mediterranean cookbook did well too, and since then, things have been stable. Not overwhelming, but good. Tina and I are happy." Kat smiled sadly because she was missing all of this. These were her friends, whom she had not always treated well, but she felt very happy for them. "Scott, Tina, I just want to say I'm sorry for how—" Scott raised his hand. "Nope, I don't want to hear it. Don't worry about it, Kat. Sure, our past was a bit shaky, but we love it here. Working with Eva, seeing Nana almost every day, family barbecues on the weekends, and of course Samuel. I feel bad about what you went through, but I wouldn't change anything about our lives right now." Then he added with a smile, "Except maybe giving Samuel a little sister." Tina asked, "Would you like to hold him?" With tears in her eyes, Kat nodded. When Tina handed the little boy to Kat, he just smiled and babbled. Then he saw her earrings and tried to reach for them, which made everyone laugh. They spent a good part of the afternoon on the back deck catching up and sharing stories about some of their fun filming days from years ago. Morales was enjoying the moment. Her daughter was there, with them, all of them. It was the happiest she had been in years. Soon it was time to go to Hank and Julia's home, which used to be Kat and Hank's vacation spot. Scott and his family would be joining them for dinner. As they got closer to the house, Kat grew more silent and nervous. This was the first time she would see Hank since that Labor Day weekend nearly 4 years ago. She wondered, what will he say? How will he act? Will I be welcomed? Kat noticed a little red Mini Cooper S convertible parked in the driveway. Eva said, "That's Nana's car." "Mama, you drive that?" Kat asked in surprise. "I wanted something small and sporty. Driving in Barcelona would have been tough, but here I enjoy it. Some mornings I'll drive along the Blue Ridge Parkway for an hour or two. It's beautiful. That's how Ava met Todd. We were out one weekend and found his family's apple and peach orchard. We stopped for pastries and coffee, and Eva practically jumped on him. I did not. It was more like he came over to me." Morales smiled while the girls giggled. They liked Todd, too. Kat was slow to get out of the car, and as everyone headed inside, she felt hesitant. Morales whispered, "It's going to be okay, Catalina. You'll see." As she stepped through the door, a delicious smell filled the air. It was something with saffron. It smelled wonderful. Kat saw Hank greeting everyone as they entered. He still looked the same, as if he hadn't changed at all. After he hugged Morales, there was nothing between them. Kat felt like running away. She noticed everyone else had paused to watch. Hank opened his arms, inviting her in for a hug, and Kat nearly fell into him. In an instant, she was crying. He simply held her, letting her go after a while. After about 20 seconds, he could hear her quietly murmuring into his shirt. "What?" he asked gently. A few moments later, she tried again. "I'm so sorry. I've missed you so much. I was foolish. Unbelievably foolish. I've learned from my mistakes, but I need you to forgive me. Please forgive me for being so selfish." She felt this burst of honesty come out. Her loneliness from the past years mixed with her regret about leaving her loved ones had finally come out. "Shh. It's okay, Kat. Everything is okay. You're forgiven. I already told you that," Hank reassured her. "I know, but I needed to. I guess I needed to hear you say it. I need to feel like you mean it." He hugged her tightly again. "I mean it. From my heart to yours, all is forgiven. You could not be more loved or welcomed than you are right now." Those words made her cry again. She felt arms wrap around her, first Morales, then Eva, and the girls tried to join in too. Hank smiled and said, "I told you we were looking forward to seeing you." "No, you said everyone is looking forward to seeing you. I was afraid you meant everyone but you." "I was including myself in that too. Come on, let's get you freshened up. I just put dinner in the oven." Ava went with Kat to the bathroom while Hank went back to the kitchen with Morales. The girls went to their rooms to change. In the kitchen, Hank said, "I know you, Mom. You're so happy right now." "You're right. I'll be even happier when Eric and everyone else get here later. My life would only feel better if Samuel were still here with us." A few minutes later, everyone else arrived. When Kat joined them, she asked, "Hank, when did you learn to cook?" "I do a bit now and then. I watched you cook for years, and then Julia taught me some things." "Why didn't you ever cook for me?" "Well, I'm making something special for you right now. But back then, your viewers wanted to watch you, not me." With a small smile, she said, We should have cooked together more. Bella asked in Spanish. Aunt Kat, will you watch your Buenos Aires episode with us? Marilis added, it's their favorite because of the tango scene. They've been waiting for you to come here so you can watch it with them. Kat laughed. You know you can't film anything from there without a tango scene. That was so much fun. She let them lead her to the family room. Over the next couple of hours, more friends began to arrive. Morgan, Bill, and Todd came in, making Kat smile just by being there, along with Eva. Then Scott, Tina, Sam, and Eric arrived. When Eric walked in, Kat felt tears come again. Even though she had seen him just 6 months ago, he looked different, bigger, and stronger. Her baby was growing up, and she felt like she was missing it all. When Julia arrived, she helped Hank finish dinner. They served 2 big dishes of paella, one with seafood and one without, along with a salad and other sides. Paella was one of Kat's favorite meals. With everyone gathered around the table, Hank stood and tapped his wine glass to make a toast. I'm so happy that my whole family is here tonight. Kat, we're especially glad you made it. Now we are complete. To family. Everyone repeated, to family. Kat stood up because she had something to say. I want to thank all of you for today. Now I understand what the prodigal son must have felt. Thank you all for welcoming me back and being so kind to someone who had lost their way for a long time. Today is the best day I've had in many years. I love you all. Everyone enjoyed their dinner, and Kat found herself in many conversations throughout the night. After Hank and Julia cleaned up, she poured 2 glasses of nice Oloroso sherry for him. As Hank went outside, he caught Kat's attention and held up the extra glass. She nodded, and a few minutes later, she joined him on the patio. She thanked him for the sherry and took a sip. She said, Thank you for helping me leave Colombia. The weather and the strike surprised me. I worried that I would miss the wedding completely because the roads from the jungle were bad. It almost turned into a big problem. I'm glad you made it out. We were all looking forward to seeing you. I can see that, and it means everything to me. I missed all of you while I was away, and today really shows me how much I missed being part of your lives. Right now, the only people I can call friends are the production crews I see each week. I really have nobody. Hank replied, I'm sorry to hear that because I know you love your work. I did, but I'm not so sure anymore. This last series has taken me to small towns and jungles in Latin America, and it really makes me question what I'm doing. They say the episodes have done well, but I'm not enjoying it. Mom and the girls watch all of your episodes. We even got a satellite dish to record them. She smiled. I'm still amazed by that. Given everything, I'm surprised Mama is so supportive, but I'm even more shocked that Julia lets the girls watch. You are loved. Don't forget that. It's that simple. She paused for a moment, trying to find the courage to say what she needed to. Hank, I know it's all in the past now, and you might not believe me, but I promise you that I did not see Lorenzo before you gave me the divorce papers. I know that it's behind us, but you deserve to know this. Hank took a moment to think. I don't want to bring up the past either, but I do believe you. However, Kat, I know you, or at least I used to. That situation was probably intense for you. He was a good-looking guy, and you two were already flirting during filming. Can you honestly tell me that if you hadn't received those papers, you would not have become involved with him at all before you left? To be honest, I don't know. I can't say absolutely for sure, but I can tell you this. I didn't want him. I wanted you, not him. You know what I mean, because when you're with someone, you, Hank, don't think about anyone else. That was how I felt back then. I was mistaken. It looked bad, really bad, and was quite foolish. I wasn't completely blameless either, because I was trying to get the deal done by being charming, without crossing any lines. But honestly, I never planned to be close with him. He said, I wonder if your priorities changed before meeting Sheila and Felicia or afterward. The Kat I knew years ago wouldn't have let herself get into that position. You would have seen how inappropriate it looked instead of getting caught up in work. Can you imagine the argument we would have had if I went with you to Barcelona and you were flirting with the soccer team instead of being with me? Or even worse, tried to convince me not to go out with you? She sighed. I know you're right. 100% right. For some reason, I didn't just want my own show. I felt like I had to reach the top, and I was willing to do almost anything to get there. I didn't realize it then, but I ended up sacrificing my family and a decent personal life for that goal. Now, I have plenty of money, some fame, and some bad reputation, but no one I want to share my life with. If I could go back 6 or 7 years to when we were in Pittsburgh and keep things just the way they were, I would do it in a heartbeat. He asked, so everything that seemed great wasn't so great after all? You already know the answer. A few years back, I felt so embarrassed when I watched those episodes that upset you. I'm really sorry for that. I tried to reach out to you for an apology, but my number was still blocked. It felt like I was completely shut out from you. And I was the one who put myself in that spot. If Mama hadn't been with me and let me use her phone to text you, I don't know how I would have handled it. Maybe by constantly trying to call Eva or Eric or flying over here. I appreciated your apology. It was important for me to see that we both recognized what happened. By then I was married to Julia, so my life was getting better, but your apology meant a lot to me. Thank you. I've missed you too. She asked, did you know the girls asked me to join you all in Spain? Of course, we all hope you can come. If you can't or don't want to, that's okay. We were thinking of renting your place in Barcelona through Airbnb. He laughed and added, we've been staying at your old home in Pittsburgh whenever we visit. How many homes do you own now? She scoffed. 4. There's my current place in Miami where I hardly ever stay and feel no connection to. Then there are the other 3, which I just can't part with. I have struggled to let go of our old house in Pittsburgh, even though I haven't visited in years. I loved the apartment in Barcelona that I worked on with Scott and Tina so much that I wanted to keep it as a getaway or an investment. I also bought Mama's apartment, with most of her things, when she sold it through someone else. I was down when she decided to sell, and I couldn't bear to lose that part of my family. I had already lost you and the feeling of home we had in our old place. I've been holding on to her old apartment, too. With all the people I care about gone, I kept these places filled with memories. That's an interesting choice. I wonder if Mom knows you still have her house, she commented. I never told her. When I'm in Barcelona, I usually stay there so the nicer one can be rented out, I explained. Kat then asked, how long will you be in Spain with the girls? A month, maybe more, I answered. Really? When we filmed there, you worked a bit. If you travel around, will you be able to manage work? I looked at her and smiled. I'm retiring. Only Julia knows this so far, but our company is being bought. My stock options will be cashing in nicely, so I'll be fine, financially comfortable, not rich. Robert is thrilled. He's going to benefit a lot. He's coming to the wedding, by the way. As for Spain, I could stay all summer, but Julia has to return. After our trip, I think I'll help Scott finish their house and support Morgan with the food bank. I might even take over running it when she's ready to step back in a few years. Julia plans to use the trip to find some new suppliers for their restaurants. I can probably help with that. I know many across Spain. I can give her a list, and maybe she can visit some while there, I suggested. I was hoping you'd say that. I also hope you can introduce her to some in person, I continued. Kat replied, if I come, I'll do that. I'm so envious of both of you. Just then, there was a tap at the patio door, and Julia came outside with the girls. Good night, Aunt Kat, they said together and hugged her sweetly. Eva followed right behind. Mom, we need to go if we're meeting Todd at his parents' house for breakfast. Kat noticed how happy Eva looked when Todd was around. She had been smiling since Kat saw her at the airport. Kat teased, breakfast? You know I don't look my best in the morning. Eva rolled her eyes. Mom, when have you ever looked bad? You could just wake up, and you would still be the loveliest person they've ever seen. She replied, that's not true. They've already seen you. Eva laughed. Thanks, Mom. I don't fully agree with you, but Todd does, and that's what matters. The girls went back inside, and Kat said to Julia, I just told Hank how much I wish I could be like you two. Julia replied, you don't need to feel that way. Your whole family is here. You could be too. You would be welcomed with open arms. When I mentioned you to the owner, she was already excited about having you as a guest chef. You might not be as famous here as you were in parts of Spain, but I believe you could do really well and still be with your family. You really wouldn't mind? Me? Why would I mind? I know I could learn a lot from you. My daughters think you are wonderful and are eager to spend time with you this week. The rest of your family, even my husband, thinks the same way. If you stay away, it won't be because you aren't wanted or loved. Eva hugged her mother. See, Mom? The only person holding you back is you. Kat knew that was true. She just needed to find a way to make it happen. We'll talk about it this week. Kat and Eva wished everyone a good night and went to Eva's apartment, where she and Todd would live for some time after they got back from their honeymoon. After they left, Julia asked Hank, "What do you think? Will she move here?" "I have no idea. I'm not really in touch with how she feels anymore." Julia chuckled. "Okay, dear, humor me. Before Kat went through her tough years, what would she have done?" "Easy. She would be wherever her family was." "Good. I will tell Mrs. Rousseau to plan for Kat to be here, and I'll ask Uncle Bill to start looking for a nice house for her." Hank teased. "What? She isn't going to live here with us?" "I'd be fine with that for a couple of months, but I don't want the extra pressure. It would be better if she came in the winter when it's too cool to spend a lot of time outside. And if she does stay over, just so you know, I'll want to make a clear impression." "Understood. You know I only have eyes for you." "You'd better. Just remember, I know how to take care of myself." "Then let's keep it that way." Julia was passionate and generous in her love. Hank knew he didn't need to worry. She showed him night after night why he would always want to be by her side. Ava and Kat got up very early to make it to the 7:30 a.m. breakfast at the Parton's orchard. Ben and Marjorie Parton were kind hosts and offered a large spread of food for such a small group of people. The farm had many tasty fruit preserves, and Kat loved them. She was thankful for the care that went into making them. After breakfast, the family gave Kat a tour of the orchard. Ava pointed out where she and Todd wanted to build their new house soon. She said, "Dad will help us with the down payment. Todd and I hope to make you a grandmother soon, so you should think about how you will be around for that. I really want my mom close by." Kat understood her clearly. Although the rest of the week was not as exciting as her first day in Asheville, Kat had a wonderful time. She spent lots of time with Eva, who seemed happy and calm about the changes in her life. Kat felt joy just watching Ava grow into such a self-assured woman. Morellis was often near them, but sometimes went to help out with Samuel. Kat saw Eric each evening at Hank and Julia's home, where she always felt welcome. Kat was also considering moving to Asheville. She loved the place, but wasn't sure how to make it happen, other than just jumping in. On Friday, the rehearsal and dinner were simple and nice. The dinner took place at one of Julia's restaurants, where Eva's college friend joined as a bridesmaid with Amber and Bella. Tina was the maid of honor. On Saturday, in the bride's room before the ceremony, all the bridesmaids, Morellis, Julia, and Kat waited together. Ava and her mother both glowed with happiness as the moment drew near. Ava seemed a bit nervous and didn't talk much, but there were many warm glances shared among the women. Morgan and Bill sat next to Morellis, honored as grandparents. Julia and Kat were seated together while Hank walked Ava down the aisle. Kat wanted to cheer when Hank answered a familiar question with, "Her mother and I." She thought, "That's right. She's ours. We raised that wonderful woman." At that moment, it felt like the biggest success of her life. It was then that she truly reflected on the last few years. For a while, she had not been seeing success in the right way. Watching Eva this past week made her feel she had done something meaningful with her life. She felt a little envious of Hank for getting to do it all over again with Amber and Bella. But she also recognized how lucky she was that they wanted to spend so much time with her. It filled her with thankfulness. At the reception, Hank was busy dancing with many women who wanted his attention. As Hank mentioned, Robert and his wife were there, and Robert took the opportunity to dance with Kat, allowing them to reconnect. Todd's family came from a rural area in western North Carolina, which created an interesting mix, but they were friendly and genuine. Thankfully, no fiddles were played during the reception. Ava's joy had lifted Kat's spirits, making her happier than she had been in over 10 years. Throughout the reception, Kat felt welcomed. A big change from her worries just a week ago about navigating through a difficult situation. Now she felt certain about her future. She just needed to take action. Eva pulled Kat with her to change into her going-away dress before she and Todd hurried off to their limo and then to their hotel, getting ready for their honeymoon in St. Martin the next day. Kat helped Eva and promised to take care of her wedding dress later. As they left the room, Ava told her mother, "I love you, Mom. Thank you for this week. It couldn't have been better." Kat held back her emotions. "Me too, sweetie. I've looked forward to today but didn't want the week to end. Move here, Mom. Then it won't have to end. Outside, the guests had gathered to shower the bride and groom with birdseed. Kat went with Ava to meet her new husband, Todd. Just before they dashed to the limo, Ava leaned in and said, "Mom, you need to move here soon. I'm pregnant." Kat looked at Todd, who seemed to have expected this news. He smiled and nodded at Kat. Then they ran through the shower of birdseed and into the waiting car. Hank and Julia, who were also aware of Eva's news, joined Kat. Hank hugged the surprised Kat and said, "Surprise! We're going to be grandparents. You knew?" So far, Eva has only shared the news with Julia, you and me. Todd will tell his parents when they return. I don't know what to say. I'm so happy. She's been glowing all week. Now I understand why. She found out just a week before you got here. Kat laughed. I guess I need to think about getting another house. They all chuckled at that. When Julia looked at Hank and smiled, he thought, everything is going to be all right. Kat moved to Asheville. While she appreciated the offer to stay with them until she found a place of her own, she decided to rent for 6 weeks until she found a home she liked. She bought a house in a neighborhood not far from Hank's, but she often visited his place since family gatherings usually happened there. She completed her season for the network, but decided not to sign a new contract. She had built her reputation enough to be a guest on various U.S. cable shows, which helped her maintain a small income and some recognition. She kept her YouTube channel going and made videos with her mom, Amber, and Bella, which brought in some money. Over the years, she saved quite a bit, so she wasn't worried about finances. Scott and Tina helped her start another PBS show, but this one was much smaller. She didn't plan to make it as big as the last one. With her savings, these smaller projects would be enough to support her. She sold her house in Pittsburgh. She thought she would feel sad about it, but being close to Eva and Eric helped her create new memories. Having her mom nearby was wonderful, and they spent many summer mornings driving along the Blue Ridge Parkway, tasting treats from local farmers, which she featured in some of her shows. Ava and Todd had a healthy baby boy. Kat was in the delivery room when he was born. She felt grateful that Ava had invited her and that she was there to share in this special moment. Kat arranged for Julia to meet the best suppliers in Spain while they all enjoyed a vacation together. They had a fantastic time visiting many cities and dining at several top restaurants where Kat knew the chefs. The changes in her work and life were a big improvement for her. She embraced the shift from being a vibrant young woman to aging gracefully on television. As long as she was near her family, she could handle whatever life brought her way. Even with Kat around, Morellis continued living with Hank and Julia. They loved having her close, and she enjoyed sharing her life with her family every day. As for Hank and Julia, their life was wonderful. Julia had the job she desired, balancing restaurant management with some cooking. At that year's charity event, Kat took center stage, but afterward, they often shared the spotlight to raise money for the food bank. Hank spent his time helping Scott restore his house and supporting Morgan at the food bank. Starting anew with Julia and the girls had been life-changing for him. Having Marilis live with them was a joy for everyone. Morgan and Bill missed having Julia and the girls living with them, but regular family gatherings helped ease that. They focused on Julia's happiness, which she had, but more importantly, it was about the girls. What started as excitement for Mr. Hank years ago had grown into a deep love for the man who had become their daddy. Hey everyone! Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of the exciting stories we have coming up. What do you think about the characters in this story? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.